Chapter 1446. Marquis Woban was hundreds of years old. Compared to him, a novice godslayer like Salvatore Toni was always simpler. In his world, there was only fighting, and he was not good at scheming. Idiot. Dustless has such a strong faction. Even if we join forces, we will only be begging for trouble. It's fine if we fail once, but I don't want to fail twice in a row at the hands of one person. Marquis Woban's expression was cold, and his whole body exuded a resolute temperament. He then followed Salvatore Toni without turning his head, treating this guy as a rash vanguard. He just had to secretly carry out the plan behind his back. Chungjia Academy's healthcare room. Miss Athena, although I'm very good at this, I absolutely can't tolerate others slandering me for no reason. The healthcare room. Oh, perhaps it could no longer be called a healthcare room. The large room was filled with a transparent enchantment, and Dustless and Athena were trapped in it. Slandering me? Athena showed a blank expression and said innocently, I'm not that kind of person. Have you been beaten silly by Erica and Liliana? Don't play dumb with me. Wu Chen snorted rudely and said loudly, When did I ask you to give birth to a child? You falsely accused me and caused me to be hunted down by Erica and Liliana. Shouldn't you take responsibility? After saying that, Dustless had an unlucky expression on his face, and Athena's expression had nothing to do with him. So it's because of this. Athena showed an enlightened expression, and then nodded indifferently. Damn, can you not be so natural? Dustless complained in his heart. Athena had tricked him, but she did not show any signs of awakening. Instead, she looked frivolous and indifferent. So much so that Wu Chen really had the thought of doing him. Do you dare to deny that you have no thoughts about me? Athena asked calmly as she stretched lazily. Men were possessive of beautiful women, and 99% of men were like this. Besides, Athena was confident in her appearance, and her identity as a god could turn men into beasts. I did have an idea, but I didn't do anything. Dustless was extremely speechless. What kind of bullshit logic was this? Could it be that when others fantasized about you, it was the same as forcing you to have children? Wasn't this a little too shameless? The two of you are in a good mood. You even have the time to flirt now. Dustless and Athena were stunned. They looked at the source of the voice and saw a handsome young man standing outside the barrier. Salvatore Anthony? Dustless asked in confusion. He was quite surprised. He had no dealings with this fellow, and neither of them knew each other. However, Salvatore Toni carried a wrapped sword on his shoulder, so he thought he was up to no good. Dustless had long known that this fellow was belligerent, but he did not expect him to come knocking on his door just a few days after he became a godslayer. He was especially annoyed that someone had taken the initiative to barricade his house. Do you know me? When Salvatore Toni heard this, he immediately became smug. He said to himself with a smile of exultation, Could it be that my reputation has spread to a place like Japan? However, after a few seconds of narcissism, he was annoyed by Dustless and Athena. Who knows a little pawn like you? If you don't want to die, get away from me. Dustless and Athena jumped into the same trench from opposite sides. Both of them said unkindly to expel Salvatore Toni. Athena and Dustless had a personal grudge, and it was not up to an outsider to intervene. Especially a godslayer who had inexplicably invaded other people's territory. What was he trying to do? This was a blatant provocation. You too. Salvatore Toni's smiling face froze. It was the first time in his life that someone had asked him to get away. Are you not convinced? Sensing the fleeting murderous intent in Salvatore Toni's eyes, Athena said disdainfully, What's so special about a godslayer? In fact, it's just Dustless did not say anything. Although Athena's tone was arrogant, it was undeniable that as a Trinity god who had regained all her strength, she had the right to look down on others. These two are really domineering. They don't take me seriously at all. Salvatore Toni had an unlucky look on his face. He realized that he had come at the wrong time. He had become Dustless and Athena's punching bag. Why are you here? You don't know anyone here, and no one welcomes you. I have a personal matter to settle now. You can go back now. Glancing at Salvatore Toni, Dustless did not hesitate to expel him. He was framed by Athena for no reason, and this debt must be settled. Sorry, it's impossible for me to go back because... I also have a personal matter to settle. Salvatore Tony smiled brightly, but the temperature around him dropped to freezing point. Sure enough, this guy is here to die. Dustless and Athena said at the same time, mocking Salvatore Tony for overestimating himself. This guy was obviously here to die. The corner of Salvatore Tony's mouth twitched violently. At first, he thought that it was pure nonsense for a godslayer and a disobedient god to be together. Now it seemed that it was not the case. There was a reason for it. At the very least, her ability to look down on others was outstanding. I am here to challenge the two of you. Salvatore Tony's patience was exhausted. He looked at Athena with glowing eyes. Of course, I don't care if someone gives away their power for free. Chapter 1447. Challenge us. Hearing this, Dustless and Athena were both stunned. A few seconds later, the two laughed, ignoring Salvatore Tony's livid face. Challenge us both? Just by yourself? Dustless's face was full of contempt. It would be good enough if Tony could take on either him or Athena alone. It seems that this kid is so confident because he wants to take on both of us. It's too funny and stupid. What's so funny? What's wrong with me challenging both of you? Hearing the two's unscrupulous ridicule, the enraged Salvatore Tony roared at Dustless and Athena. These two adulterers look down on me too much. What's more, who told you that I'm alone? Let me tell you too clearly, I have a powerful ally. Salvatore Tony changed the topic and said proudly, there is another god-slayer who has allied with me. Allied? Dustless's smile came to an abrupt end. He could not help but frown deeply. After thinking about it, he did not offend anyone except Marquis Oban. He immediately asked, could it be Marquis Oban who lost to me? Yes, it's him. Salvatore nodded slightly and replied loudly. Puff. Marquis Oban, who was secretly watching the situation, vomited blood. This idiot who only knows how to fight. Sure enough, it was wrong to cooperate with him. I was really blind. Marquis Oban's internal organs twitched fiercely. This idiot is too honest. Why are you so obedient? Dustless asked you to die, so why didn't you die? No matter what, let's capture the weakest few first. That way, it will be equivalent to my victory. This guy is too much. A godslayer actually values such boring things as feelings and bonds. You are really rotten. Marquis Oban grinned and sneered, revealing his white teeth. He was as terrifying as a vampire. Looking at Dustless, his eyes were full of endless contempt. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. After observing for a few more seconds and confirming that Dustless, Athena, and Salvatore Anthony would not get in his way, Marquis Warban left silently. He had secretly captured Erica, Wanli Guyoli, Liliana, and the others. The three of them were the weakest, so it would be easier to threaten Dustless after capturing them. Although his reputation would be ruined in the future, Marquis Warban had already lost his rationality due to the flames of vengeance. Thinking about the glaring footprint that Dustless had left on his face, Marquis Warban was furious. Bring it on. On the other side, Dustless crooked his finger, and the expression of looking at trash made Salvatore Tony's mouth twitch wildly. He did not even use his authority and directly rushed over with his fist. Ka-ka-ka. His body erupted with endless impact, forcibly tearing apart the barrier set up by Dustless. That's all. With a cold snort, seeing how fragile the barrier was, Salvatore Tony's confidence exploded. He gathered explosive force in his feet and charged over. You overestimate yourself. Shaking her head slightly, Athena turned her head away. She could not bear to see the scene of Salvatore Tony being beaten up by Dustless. The two of them were completely different existences. This barrier was set up by Dustless casually, so it was very fragile. The original intention was to prevent Dustless and Athena's conversation from being overheard. It did not think of defending against the enemy, so it was understandable that Salvatore Tony tore it apart forcefully. Repent, arrogant brat. Salvatore Tony jumped up, clenched his hand into a fist, and used the falling force to punch Dustless's face with all his might. Funny. Glancing at Salvatore Tony with pity, Dustless casually raised his palm and effortlessly caught the incoming fist. His arm that was as slender as a willow branch was unexpectedly strong. Salvatore Tony struggled for a long time but could not escape from the restraint. How is this guy so strong? On the surface, Salvatore Tony remained calm. However, he was frowning in his heart. As a close combat warrior, it was understandable that he had great strength. However, Dustless had nothing to do with this profession. Moreover, Dustless seemed to be very good at close combat. He had easily subdued Tony. His grappling skills were outstanding. This made Salvatore Tony involuntarily think of a person. Hierarch Luo Hao. Is he really Luo Hao's apprentice? Salvatore Tony speculated. When he heard Luo Hao say that Dustless was her apprentice a while ago, he just laughed it off. He thought it was a deliberate target to attract Marquis Warban's firepower. Now, judging from his grappling skills, it might be true. However, just as Salvatore Tony was thinking hard, Dustless launched a counterattack. Bang! Gently lifting his right foot, Dustless kicked Salvatore Tony's groin. Ow! Ow! Immediately afterward, Salvatore Tony's hysterical screams spread through the sky. His old face turned green, and he rolled on the ground in pain. Athena, who couldn't hold back her laughter, laughed out loud. Her red face was like a ripe peach, making people want to take a bite. Scoundrel, I will kill you. Salvatore Tony was furious. The fire in his words was enough to burn a human to death. He glared at Dustless fiercely, and his eyes were as terrible as a dying beast. This bastard is too despicable. He doesn't know the rules at all. What if he becomes a cripple? Salvatore Tony grimaced in pain, covering the most important part of the man with both hands. If it weren't for the fact that they were in public, he would have taken off his pants to take a closer look. Chapter 1448. Dustless looked at Salvatore Tony, who was rolling on the ground. His clean expression was indifferent. This guy is just a clown used to attract firepower. It's just that he's too naive and likes to fight, so he doesn't realize it. Marquis Warban. That old guy made his own choice. I wanted to let him go this time, but who would have thought that he would continue to court death? Since he likes to play with fire so much, I'll burn him to death this time. The dense killing intent caused one's heart to palpitate. Dustless's cold face was almost covered with a thin layer of ice. Bastard, I won't let you go either. How dare you? Salvatore Anthony glared at Dustless with fire in his eyes. This guy is too arrogant. His means are too vicious. He actually wants to end my bloodline. Oh, Athena, did you see that? He can still talk. It means that I wasn't ruthless enough just now. Dustless pointed at Salvatore Tony and said to Athena. Humph. Salvatore Tony snorted and did not give a reply. Boring. Athena rolled her eyes at Dustless. Then, she turned her head away as if she didn't see anything. However, the corner of her eyes swept around Salvatore Tony, and a faint smile hung on the corner of her mouth. This guy is obviously here to make fun of me. You will definitely pay for this. Salvatore Anthony gritted his teeth and stood up. His eyes were full of devastation as he stared at Silver. Light flashed across the corners of his eyes from time to time. He seemed to be thinking about which angle to launch a sneak attack on Dustless. Since you want to die so much, I'll fulfill your wish. Dustless's body flashed with a huge flash. Golden light flashed, and in the next second, his shining little foot mercilessly greeted Salvatore Tony's abdomen. Light speed kick. The powerful force that could destroy heaven and earth smashed on Salvatore Tony's body with endless impact. It doesn't feel right. Why does it feel like I'm kicking steel? Dustless looked at Salvatore Tony in surprise. After this attack, he only took a few steps back. Silver's right foot was also numb. At the same time, Athena also noticed Salvatore Tony's abnormality and stared at him with burning eyes. It should be his authority. Athena guessed, a strange light flashing in her eyes. Her tone was filled with admiration. She knew Dustless's strength. Salvatore Tony was not bad to be able to withstand this sleep. Humph, you will soon pay the price for underestimating me. Salvatore Tony was like a proud eagle. He had finally recovered some of his shattered self-esteem. Of course I know that this is his authority. Dustless rolled his eyes and glared at Athena. Did she really need to ask such a simple question? She made him look like a newbie. This should be the authority you usurped from the Norse hero Siegfried, the steel protection. It turns your body into steel. No matter if it's weight or hardness, It will be incomparable. It will greatly increase your weight and will not be easily blown away. With such a body, it will also be very effective in attacking the enemy and defending. Dustless explained calmly with an expression that said, "You can't hide anything from me." Gulp. Are you kidding me? What kind of pervert is this guy? How did he recognize my authority so quickly? Salvatore Toni's mouth twitched violently. He stared at Dustless in disbelief with his eyes wide open. This is simply cheating. Even if you are shameless, you should know when to stop. Dustless, this guy. Not only was Salvatore Toni stunned, but Athena also looked at Dustless in shock. Judging from Toni's shocked expression, Dustless was obviously telling the truth. It seems that the winner and loser have been decided. Athena felt that Dustless was difficult to deal with. At the same time, she looked at Salvatore Toni with pity. As long as Athena took out Velislana's golden sword to deal with him, this authority would be considered useless. Humph, a blind cat meeting a dead mouse. You are just lucky to be able to identify the source of my authority. Salvatore Toni retorted with a red face. There seemed to be no other explanation other than a blind guess. After all, it was impossible to say that Dustless could foresee the future. Also, Salvatore Toni changed the topic and sneered. So what if you can understand my authority? You can't break it anyway. I'd like to see how you can defeat me. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. There was a violent explosion in the air. A black shadow could be vaguely seen rushing towards Dustless. You are too full of yourself. Athena sighed softly. She had seen the miserable appearance of Salvatore Toni being beaten up. If he knew Dustless's authority, he might not be so arrogant. Athena's watery eyes moved to Dustless with interest. She originally thought that Dustless would take out the golden sword to defeat the enemy. Who would have thought that Dustless's sudden move would subvert her understanding of him? Hey. You want to be my opponent? I say you think too highly of yourself. Dustless did not dodge. His annoying face was still trying his best to humiliate Salvatore Toni. Go to hell. Salvatore Toni was furious. His powerful fist blasted towards Dustless's face. Bang bang bang. Dustless's body was like seawater, being beaten into pieces in an instant. What's going on? Salvatore Toni was stunned. It was the first time he had seen such an unexpected scene. Shouldn't a person be torn apart after being beaten down? So what? Anyway, I am a man of steel. He can't hurt me. Although he did not understand what tricks Dustless had used, he was relieved when he thought of his own ability. A man of steel could defend against most attacks. Chapter 1449. His protection of steel was quite special and could be said to be impenetrable. But this time, it was destined to fail. Do you think your authority is invincible? Salvatore Toni was about to turn his head and launch an attack when he was faced with endless ridicule and contempt. Salvatore Toni could not afford to underestimate his own strength. The difference in strength between the two sides was too great. Light speed kick. Dustless's eyes became colder and colder. His feet covered with flashes of light kicked out mercilessly. TSK. I was so nervous. It turns out that you are using the same old trick again. Salvatore Toni sneered disdainfully. Just now, he faced this move head-on but nothing happened. Dustless wanted to use this move to defeat him. It was simply wishful thinking. Ignorant kid, do you really think that I used my full strength just now? Witnessing Salvatore Toni's arrogance, Dustless smiled without saying a word. When encountering such an idiot, there was no need to explain more. Just let the fist speak the truth. Boom boom boom. The light-speed kick mercilessly greeted Salvatore Toni's body. In the next second, he realized that his previous idea was completely wrong. It was even a little childish. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. The power of the light-speed kick, this time, was different from before. Salvatore Toni was kicked hundreds of meters away. Ka ka ka. Salvatore Toni's body smashed into the wall, leaving a shocking crack. This time, his expression was not as indifferent as before. The pain on his face was clearly visible. Not so arrogant this time, right? Strolling towards Salvatore Toni, who was unable to move in the deep pit, Dustless's eyes were full of smiles. In the end, the cold smile on his face became even more obvious. At the same time, Athena also followed. You don't really want to kill him, do you? Athena approached Dustless and asked quietly. It all depends on my mood, Dustless shrugged and gave an ambiguous answer, fooling Athena casually. Boom boom boom. At the same time, a shockwave came from another direction. Dustless and Athena both stopped in their tracks. Ha ha ha. So that's how it is. No wonder that damned old man agreed to work with me. I thought he had changed, but it turns out he was using me as bait. Damn it. This was all part of Marquis Warben's plan. Looking at the black smoke rising into the sky and the servants of death scurrying around, Salvatore Tony suddenly realized that he had been fooled. Damn it! Smashing the wall next to him, Salvatore Tony wanted to swallow Marquis Warban alive. Aye. Although you are still an idiot, you are not incurable. I always thought that you would not understand the truth of the matter, and would always be used by Marquis Warban. Now, it seems that you are smarter than I thought. The sound of Dustless clapping could be heard. Looking at the teaching building in the distance, a cold killing intent flashed in the corner of his eyes. Of course, the target this time was not Salvatore Tony. The old man will kill you this time. Looking at the teaching building with black smoke, Dustless had vaguely guessed Marquis Warban's plan. Athena! Gently turning his head and glancing at Athena, Dustless turned and left. Leaving Salvatore Tony to her, Dustless rushed in the direction of Marquis Warban. Athena today was different from the original work. After Dustless returned the Gorgon stone to her, Athena's strength had always been at its peak. Dealing with a mere Salvatore Tony was no problem. These two guys. One is more arrogant than the other. Seeing Silver leave, Salvatore Tony's face turned green. This was naked contempt, and he did not take him, a god-slayer, seriously at all. Even if this subordinate, Athena, was a god, Salvatore Tony's self-esteem was hurt. He had always placed himself in the same position as Dustless. I will not be as sloppy as Dustless. A scythe appeared in her hand. Athena stared at Salvatore Tony and said, Please don't die. At least let me play for a while. That guy was the only one who occupied the console just now. Game console. Hearing this, Salvatore Tony almost suffocated to death. Both of them had treated him as a tool to please and play with. A soldier would rather die than be humiliated. Under the attack of the flame, Salvatore Tony even forgot about his injuries and stood up regardless of everything. On the other side of Chungjia College, the flames of war were also raging, and the situation was also one-sided. Boom, boom, boom. The violent explosions sounded again, and the powerful aftershock spread, and several figures were also sent flying. Damn it, is this the strength of the king? So strong. Liliana and Erica fought side by side. Next to them was Gu Yoli, who was 10,000 miles away. At this moment, the three of them were in a sorry state, and their fair faces were covered with dust. We are no match for him, Gu Yoli said with a bitter smile. He looked at Liliana and Erica helplessly. Rather than calling it 3, it was more appropriate to call it 2. Gu Yoli was not good at fighting. This guy intends to capture us alive to threaten Dustless. We must not let him succeed. Erica vowed solemnly, and there was a sense of awe in her words. Yes, this old guy plans to do so. Despicable. Liliana and Gu Yoli nodded at the same time, and they also understood Marquis Oben's purpose. He wanted to use the three of them to threaten Dustless. Chapter 1450. Both Liliana and Erica were nervous. As they watched Marquis Oben approach, the pressure on them increased, and they could not help but retreat. As knights, they were not afraid of death, but if Marquis Oben captured them alive and used them to threaten Dustless, that would be unacceptable. A knight's duty was to protect the safety of the king. It was fine if they could not protect the king, but if they were used to threaten the king, Erica and Liliana could not accept it. Erica? Liliana? The two ladies looked at each other at the same time and saw the determination in each other's eyes. They then nodded at the same time, as if they had made a firm decision. Miss Erica, Miss Liliana, are you saying that you want to? Wanli Gu Yoli clutched the corner of her clothes tightly. Although she was not good at fighting, she was intelligent enough to understand what the two ladies meant. Oh, how touching. Do you want to die together? That won't do. You are my important bargaining chips. Marquis Oban was also an old fox. He naturally knew what Erica and Liliana were thinking. They wanted to kill themselves when the situation became unfavorable. It's a pity to die at such a young age. I haven't lived long enough. No living creature, be it human or animal, wants to die. The desire for life was the essence of living creatures. No one wanted to die. Then, just as Marquis Oban was about to study philosophy, an extremely discordant sarcasm sounded, as if it had suddenly appeared in his heart without him noticing. Will you please die? The cold voice was like a block of ice. The flow of the air stopped, and a suffocating and dangerous atmosphere filled the air. Who is it? Come out! Marquis Warban roared. He looked around, but he couldn't find a single soul. Idiot! I'm right behind you. Hearing this, Marquis Oban was shocked. He immediately turned around and saw Dustless's playful little face. His eyes were filled with mockery. Go! Marquis Oban was shocked. Just as he was about to attack, he suddenly felt a piercing pain in his organs. He widened his eyes and saw that the golden greatsword had shattered his organs. His heart had already been destroyed by the sharpness of the sword. Isn't your reaction speed a little too slow? With your sloppy standards, you want to be a godslayer? The rules of this world are about survival of the fittest. You should be eliminated as soon as possible. Staying in this world is also a waste of resources. Dustless thrust the Kusanagi sword into Marquis Oban's chest, completely pulverizing all of his internal organs. Even his heart had been reduced to minced meat. You bastard! Marquis Warban could feel his life force slipping away at a rapid rate, and he was practically biting out every word. The corners of his mouth were twitching, and Dustless even suspected that his jaw was about to dislocate. You're about to die, yet you still hate me so much? Silver had a helpless expression on his face, but the heavenly cluster cloud sword that he had stabbed into Marquis Warban's body had sunk in by a few strands. Dustless hated being threatened by others, and Marquis Warban had touched his bottom line. Dustless had always been the type of person who used despicable schemes, and Marquis Warban had touched his sore spot. Even if I die, I'll drag you down with me. Marquis Warban bellowed with a ferocious expression. His physique suddenly changed, becoming several times stronger in an instant. You can still use your authority in this state? Dustless frowned inwardly. His internal organs had already collapsed, and even his heart was a bloody mess. Yet Marquis Warban was so ferocious that he could still use his authority. His life force was truly astounding. Even if I die, I'll drag you down with me. Marquis Warban roared hysterically. Anyone who was forced to the brink of death would have their fighting strength increase exponentially. This was true for ordinary humans and beasts, and as a godslayer, Marquis Warban was no exception. Boom! 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 The originally cloudless sky suddenly flashed with lightning and thunder, and the wind howled. There was even a sudden downpour, and the biting cold wind made it difficult for anyone to stand still. That old fellow really has a lot of authority. Dustless pursed his lips. Until now, he only had the authority of Wells Lana. Although Mercator had also been killed by Dustless, Dustless turned a deaf ear to his useless authority. Go to hell! Thick flashes of light descended from the sky, all of them locking onto Dustless. Boom! 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 Lightning kept exploding on Dustless's body, mercilessly destroying his body. Billions of Ford of lightning struck Dustless's body until it exploded. This should be the end. Looking at Dustless's body, which had exploded into several pieces, Marquis Warban's shattered heart felt a little better. End? The CIA is more suitable when you go home to sleep. The pieces of Dustless's body suddenly flashed with a large amount of light, and in a few seconds, Dustless came back to life, unharmed. Mother *****. Marquis Warban, who had always considered himself a gentleman, was speechless. He looked at the unharmed Dustless, dumbfounded. He wanted to cry but had no tears. None of his moves seemed to work on him. How was he supposed to play this game? Liliana, stop daydreaming. Hurry up and attack. Erica saw that Marquis Warban was silent and gloomy, and shouted urgently. Then, the two of them launched a sneak attack on Marquis Warban from behind. Marquis Warban screamed. His expression was extremely miserable as his arms were cut off by the two of them. Chapter 1451. Marquis Woban was fatally injured in an instant. How much combat power did he have left with his arms chopped off? An ordinary human would be crippled, but a Godslayer was different. He would not be defeated so easily. Their hysterical roars resounded through the sky, and they were filled with endless sorrow. Marquis Woban roared at the sky, his voice filled with sorrow and indignation. He stared at Liliana. Never in his wildest dreams would he have his arms chopped off by a traitor. You did well. Marquis Woban could only admit defeat. He had to admit that he had lost everything. As a king, his arms had been chopped off by his former subordinate. Marquis Woban would be hung on the pillar of shame, dead or alive. Kiki. Even if I die, I'll drag you down with me. Its oily green eyes stared fixedly at Liliana, as if it was a hungry beast that could hear the sound of her growling. You still won't give up even after things have turned out this way? His obsession is really deep. With a flash, Dustless turned into a beam of light and landed in front of Erica and Liliana. They had succeeded just now mainly because Dustless had attracted most of Marquis Woban's attention and had launched a sneak attack. If the two of them had fought him alone, Marquis Woban would have died. You should just die and purify the world. Dustless's voice was as cold as a knife, not bothering to hide his killing intent. Heh. Marquis Woban laughed bitterly. He no longer wished to live in one piece. It doesn't matter, as long as I can drag that traitor down with me. Marquis Woban's eyes glowed green. Go away, that's his power. Remembering their previous exchange, Silver hurriedly told Liliana and Erica to get out of the way and explained, Don't let his eyes see, or your body will turn into a salt barrier. Crack, crack, crack. Sure enough, in the next second Wu Chen, who was blocking in front of the two women, made a cracking sound from his body. King Dustless. Liliana and Erica exclaimed, greatly moved. If it weren't for Dustless, the two of them would have crystallized into salt. Don't worry, these clown tricks won't work on me. Dustless waved his hand and smashed his chest that had turned into a barrier. The 10-tailed beast's heaven-defying physique once again took effect and Dustless's skin was intact. Damn, this bastard is really the most troublesome. Marquis Woban's face darkened as he cursed Salvatore Tony for being an idiot. Looking at Dustless, Marquis Woban seemed to have thought of something. He asked in surprise, Speaking of which, where is that idiot Salvatore Tony? Don't tell me you've turned into a fool? How long has it been? Doubt was written all over Marquis Woban's face. How many minutes had it taken to kill a Godslayer? This joke wasn't funny at all. I left him to Athena, but that guy should be in more danger now. Dustless stroked his chin. He could already see Salvatore's miserable appearance. Trash. Marquis Woban curled his lips fiercely. If Salvatore Tony could hold Dustless back, he wouldn't have ended up in such a miserable state. Erica and Liliana, the traitors, would definitely be his prey. Okay, I've answered your questions. Do you have any other last words? Dustless asked seriously, intending to end this boring battle quickly. Marquis Woban was weak, a man, and ugly. Dustless was not interested in him. I have some last words. Silently approaching Dustless, Marquis Woban's eyes shot out a cold luster. Then, like a gust of wind and lightning, he rushed out until he pounced on Liliana, who was behind Dustless. Go to hell with me, Liliana. At this moment, Marquis Woban's speed was beyond human comprehension. It was as exaggerated as jumping through space. Even his afterimage could not be seen. Of course, it was just that humans could not see it. Sorry, your last words are too much for me to do. Forgive me for not being able to fulfill them. A black sphere suddenly appeared behind his back, turning into a sharp spear and flinging it out. There was no doubt that the target was Marquis Woban. His right leg was suddenly stabbed, and blood kept flowing out. Ha ha ha. Idiot. You want to kill me with this? Ridiculous. And what's the use of stabbing me? You know I'm... Marquis Woban's voice came to an abrupt halt. He found that his left leg was slowly disintegrating. In the blink of an eye, his leg had disappeared. Idiot. That's the truth-seeking jade. No matter where I hit you, you'll definitely die. Glancing at Marquis Woban with pity, Dustless left with Erica, Liliana, and Wanli Gu Yoli. They went straight to the place where Athena and Marquis Woban were fighting. It seems to be over there too. Athena probably won. Sensing that the violent energy fluctuations in the distance had stopped, Dustless was certain that it was over. There were only a few people who dared to say that they could defeat Athena. After all, not everyone was like Dustless, who had countless powerful trump cards. After all, Athena was a powerful god of the Trinity. Forget it, let's go back. Athena knows the way home. Dustless suddenly changed his mind. Hearing this, Wanli Gu was stunned. He frowned and asked, "Is this appropriate? She's a companion. Don't worry about her. It's appropriate." Looking as far as he could, he found that Athena had disappeared. Dustless guessed that she had gone home first. As for Salvatore Toni, he did not see his corpse. Chapter 1452. Could he be in danger? Wanli Gu asked nervously. After all, the other party was one of the Godslayers, and there was no doubt about his strength. Danger? Your worry is unnecessary. Dustless curled his lips. Although Salvatore Toni was a Godslayer, there were different levels of gods. For a god like Athena, who was a trinity, it was not easy to kill her. I also don't think Athena will lose to the Godslayer. Even if she can't beat him, she should be able to deal with him. After all, not everyone is like him. Erica said with a serious expression as she pointed at Dustless with a slender finger. What does this have to do with me? Dustless couldn't help but feel speechless. He felt like he was being attacked even when he was lying down. However, he was quite happy. Although Athena was a god of disobedience, now it was obvious that she had integrated into the group. While they were talking, Dustless and the others had returned to Shizuka Kusunagi's house. Sure enough, as Dustless guessed, the lights in the house were on, and he could smell the aroma of cooking. Shizuka Kusunagi was probably preparing dinner. You guys are really dawdling. It's just a Godslayer. Why did you take so long? As soon as Dustless and the others entered the house, a dissatisfied grumble was heard. Looking at the source of the voice, the person who spoke was the angry Athena. The table was filled with a dazzling array of delicious food. Athena's fingers were wide open, but she didn't eat for a long time. Shizuka Kusunagi probably insisted on waiting for Dustless to eat together. By the way, where is the last person of Salvatore Toni? Dustless asked with a smile. Although he was sure that Athena was not killed, Dustless could not help but feel relieved when he saw Athena. He was quite worried about this proud woman. Him. Athena frowned slightly and replied bluntly, "That kid's strength is average, but he is very good at running away. He escaped." Dustless frowned. He felt that Athena's explanation was a little far-fetched. Forget it, let him be. He's just a harmless pawn that Marquis Warban used. It's fine as long as the culprit is dead. Dustless was too lazy to ask more. He just ate a mouthful of the Kusunagi dish. Not bad. Giving Shizuka Kusunagi a thumbs up, Dustless sighed inwardly that her culinary skills had improved greatly. Speaking of the future, it's going to be a holiday soon. Do we need to go to Italy? If I stay in Japan all the time, my body will rust. He moved his body slightly, and a crackling sound could be heard. I agree, Erica said with glowing eyes. Me too. Shizuka Kusunagi, Yoli Wanli, and Liliana looked at each other and nodded at the same time. Going to Italy seemed like a good idea. Anyway, the holidays were still long. I'm going too. Athena suddenly spoke, a strange look flashing across her face. Is it because of the stone pillar of Hera? It shouldn't be. Looking at Athena with interest, Dustless touched his chin and smiled without saying a word. You have a problem with that? Sensing Dustless's teasing gaze, Athena's face suddenly changed. How would I dare? You're the Trinity god. I'm scared of death. Dustless shrugged and said in a strange and fearful tone. Humph. She glared fiercely at Dustless. Of course, Athena could hear the teasing in Dustless's voice. But then again, that Mortis is really sad. Thinking of Mortis's past, which was Athena's current past, Dustless's cold heart had a rare touch of sympathy. It was indeed tragic to be devoured by her own husband. I'm going to rest first. After quickly finishing his meal, Dustless planned to go straight to bed after taking a bath. The battle with Marquis Warban made him sweat a lot. Dustless could even smell a faint odor coming from his body. The water is ready, and your pajamas are in the bathroom. Kusanagi Shizuka smiled very considerately. Every time, she would prepare the bathwater for Dustless in advance. Thank you, Shizuka. I can handle this kind of small matter. Dustless thanked her sincerely. Kusanagi Shizuka was very kind. Although she would occasionally throw a tantrum, it was also her most adorable and lively side. Phew! Lying comfortably in the water, Dustless closed his eyes. Just as he was about to take a nap, he suddenly heard an unusual movement. His closed eyes suddenly opened. Erica! Dustless almost screamed. His face was full of shock. Shut up! Erica hurriedly rushed over and covered Dustless's mouth. She stared at him and said, Don't talk. You don't want me to be caught, do you? It's none of my business. Dustless was speechless. What does it have to do with me if you're caught? Don't look at me with such an irresponsible gaze. As if sensing Dustless's complaint, Erica blew a hot breath in Dustless's ear and chuckled. King, don't you want something to happen between you and your knight that can lead to a breakthrough? Could it be that you want to? Hearing this, a strange glint flashed in Dustless's eyes. He was not a rookie, and he naturally knew what Erica meant by this. It also explained why Erica took the initiative to come to him. No wonder you're so nervous. You want to steal it. Dustless teased. Steal it? Do you know how to speak properly? You're mine. Erica's pretty face was tense as she said to Dustless in a very serious tone. Chapter 1453. Hearing Erica's explicit monologue, Dustless naturally had a reaction. He was not a monk. Who could resist a beautiful woman who delivered herself to him? Moreover, Erica was originally Wuxia's fiancée. The only thing that he didn't expect was that Erica would take the initiative to come to his door and use such insinuating words. I say. Dustless stared at Erica speechlessly. She had even changed her clothes. Her transparent pajamas were only a layer apart. With his excellent vision, Dustless could even see the faint blush that he should not have seen. I'm taking a shower now. Looking at Erica, Dustless did not know whether to laugh or cry. He continued, Also, what are you up to? I feel that you're acting strange today. Upon hearing that, Erica said indignantly, Of course I have to act fast. Otherwise, they will cut the queue and get ahead of me. Look at Liliana and the others, especially you and Athena, who are always flirting with each other. I have to defend my position. You're overthinking it. Dustless replied. At the same time, he grabbed Erica with his restless little hands. Her face immediately blushed like a poppy flower that was about to bloom. One could not help but be captivated by her. Right. Realizing that something was wrong, Erica suddenly slapped away Dustless's little hands. Her stern eyes were as sharp as knives. Erica, is there something wrong? Dustless asked in disappointment. He was very upset that someone had interrupted his good time. In particular, Erica's eyes, which seemed to be able to see through everything, made Dustless's heart uneasy. He felt that she could see through his biggest secret. Why are you so familiar with a woman's body? After a while, Erica asked a question that made Dustless want to vomit blood. Of course. I have a harem of 3,000 beauties. Dustless complained in his heart. This little girl thinks that I'm still a newbie. She doesn't think that I'm a virgin, does she? Idiot. I'm a healthcare teacher. It's normal for me to be familiar with a woman's body. Dustless said shamelessly, and don't worry about such details. I was born with an understanding of women's bodies. With that, Dustless pushed Erica down. Hey. Didn't you guys hear that weird sound coming from the bathroom? Wanli Guyoli asked blankly. Everything was fine just now, but after a few minutes, an inexplicable and abnormal sound came out. It didn't seem to be Dustless's. Liliana and Shizuka Kusanagi nodded. Don't mind such trivial matters. Athena took a sip of tea calmly. That being said, she glanced at the bathroom, only to discover that Erica's face was red after she disappeared. She had already guessed what had happened. Shall we go and take a look? Realizing that Erica had disappeared, Liliana also realized that something was wrong. I'll go take a look for you. You're still young, and some things are not suitable for you, Athena said with the tone of a big sister. The three girls looked at each other and then nodded in unison. Fuck Athena, that scheming bitch, is here to trick me again. Dustless's mouth twitched. Although he was fully focused on Erica, he still used his observation hockey to perceive the movements of several people in the living room. When he heard that Athena was coming to inquire about information, Dustless realized that something was wrong. She had a criminal record and framed Dustless last time. Erica, you hide from me first. You don't want to be caught by Athena. Looking at the intoxicated Erica, Dustless asked in a deep voice. Women have this kind of expression after being nourished. You really like to meddle in other people's business. Erica frowned deeply when she heard this. If the matter between her and Dustless was exposed, it was almost certain that Liliana and others would come to get a share of it. Dustless is only so big. What would be left after a few women share it? Erica expressed her unwillingness. But this place is only so big? Where can I hide? Erica smiled bitterly. Where can you hide in a bathroom of more than 10 square meters? And the other party is a god. Isn't it asking for humiliation if you want to play a game of hide and seek with her? That's right. Looking around, Dustless found that there was indeed nowhere to hide. I will suck you into the divine power space first and let you out when Athena leaves. Dustless smiled. Aware that Athena was gradually approaching, regardless of whether Erica agreed or not, he directly activated his dojutsu. Divine power. There was a ripple in the void, and the next second, Erica disappeared. Creak. At the same time, Athena just opened the door and came in. What a strange smell. Suddenly smelling the strange smell left in the air, for some reason, Athena couldn't help but blush. Are you alone? Looking at Dustless leisurely soaking in the bath, Athena's cheeks were full of suspicion. She just saw a figure in a trance. It was just me before. Now there's another one. Dustless looked lazy. Erica? Athena asked expectantly, but for some reason, she was somewhat disappointed. Dustless raised his arm and shook his fingers lightly. He teased. Erica? She's not here. You can look for her yourself if you don't believe me. I think Erica went upstairs to sleep. Besides, the person I'm talking about is you, Miss Athena. You ambushed me when I was taking a bath. I can sue you for molestation. I molested you. Even with her calmness, Athena's lips twitched violently. Looking down at Dustless's smiling face, she felt that he was asking for a beating. Was his brain damaged by the water? Chapter 1454. Athena was quite taken aback by Dustless's words. She stared at him with her gem-like eyes, not minding that he was naked at all. Perhaps to Athena, this was just his skin. If you don't know how to, then leave now, Dustless ordered, but he was flustered by Athena's stare. Humph! Did you secretly take advantage of me? Athena asked in an extremely unfriendly tone. Afraid that Dustless would misunderstand, she quickly added, I'm asking on behalf of Jinghua and the other two. Secretly? Am I that kind of person? Dustless didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but he was laughing inwardly. If not me, then who is? You think I look like you? Glancing at Dustless's smooth and well-muscled body from the corner of her eye, she couldn't help but nod inwardly. This guy's skin was fair and beautiful. If he wore a girl's clothes, he would definitely be a great beauty. Is that so? But the truth is that I'm innocent. If you don't believe me, feel free to search. Dustless shrugged nonchalantly and pointed at all the places in the bathroom, indicating that Athena could look anywhere she wanted. How could such a small place hide from a god? Humph, you think I don't dare? Athena snorted and walked around a few times, her frown growing deeper and deeper. Little guy, you want to fight with me? You tricked me last time. This time, I'm going to pay you back double, plus interest. Staring at Athena's curvaceous figure, Dustless's heart throbbed. Everyone loved a fair and graceful woman. How is it, Miss Athena? Have you found any trace of Erica? A few minutes later, Dustless's laughter was full of mockery and laughter. If you love me, just say it. There's no need to use such a despicable trick to watch me bathe. Next time, just say it. Athena's mouth twitched as she glared at Dustless. She was sure that there was someone else in the bathroom, but she had no evidence. Keep pretending. I'm not leaving this place today. Don't let Erica out if you dare. Athena crossed her arms in front of her chest, as if Dustless was going to win. This guy. Dustless frowned hard after hearing that. Erica had been put into the space of godly might. He couldn't keep her there forever, could he? This guy's head must have been kicked by a donkey, Dustless slandered in his mind. Why is he so obsessed with me today? Is he trying to embarrass me on purpose? Dustless began to doubt Athena's motives. Looking at her stubborn expression, he felt a headache coming on. He had to use his trump card. I'm going to put on my clothes. Please leave. Don't even think about it. Athena pouted and refuted. Not only will I not leave, but I will also let you put on your clothes. Don't forget that I said that I would be your servant after I lost to you in our battle. Then, Athena walked to Dustless with her pajamas. Damn it! Dustless secretly hesitated. It was fine if Erica was locked in the space of godly might by herself for a while, but nobody could stand it in the long run. Who would be able to bear being locked up in a desolate world with no signs of human habitation? But Athena was so stubborn that it was obvious she wanted to catch them in the act. Dustless was also helpless. He couldn't just throw Athena out. Put on my clothes. Dustless stood up from the water and walked to Athena naked with a vague smile on his lips. This jerk. Athena secretly cursed. Blushing, she gritted her teeth and helped Dustless dry the water. Not bad. I've made enough of a bargain today. Dustless secretly rejoiced. Not only had he taken down Erica, but he had also asked Athena, a goddess, to put on his clothes for him. He couldn't have felt better. Although Athena was a high and mighty goddess, she was very meticulous in her work. She helped Dustless dry the water on his body, dried his hair, and finally helped Dustless put on his pajamas. It was rare for a goddess to show her tender side. Miss Athena, I'm going to bed. Hee. If you're willing, I'd love to sleep with you. When he went upstairs, Dustless smiled at Athena in delight. In your dreams. Athena glared at Dustless fiercely with a wretched expression. Confused, Dustless said shamelessly. You said yourself that you're my servant. Why can't you sleep with me? Also, look how compatible we are. Compatible? Bull**T. Do you think I'm a nymphomaniac like them? Don't dream about it, Mr. Godslayer. Athena said angrily. Although she said it so harshly, Athena couldn't deny that Dustless was indeed a good match for her, whether in strength or status. He was not inferior to her. In terms of strength, he was far more powerful than Athena. Insensible woman. Seeing that Athena was so insensible, Dustless didn't bother to waste his breath. A woman's heart was like a needle at the bottom of the sea, and there was no need to be entangled. Creak. Pushing open the door, his observation hockey spread out. After noticing that no one was there, Dustless launched his dojutsu. Kamui. It was not until then that the naked Erica fell out of the space of divine power. Where was that just now? Erica's eyes were empty and her face was blank. She found that her understanding of Dustless was only the tip of the iceberg. That strange world was barren, but it really existed. Hearing this, Dustless didn't hide it and said directly, That's my world, one of my dojutsu, and its usual use is to prevent certain things from being used. Erica stared at Dustless angrily. This guy really doesn't know the hunger of the hungry. Such a powerful and unique trick is actually a place to store things. It's a waste of God's gift. Chapter 1455. 2 days later, in Italy, on a warm beach. Dustless and the others all took a plane to Italy. Several women played beach volleyball by the seaside, and this time, they also called the Witch of Sardinia, Miss Lucurezia, to come out. Young people are really energetic. Lying lazily on the sand, Dustless gently looked at the frolicking Erica and others. He shook his head slightly. You don't look old. Lucurezia was speechless. If Dustless thinks that he's old, then what is she? Old witch? Lucurezia always felt that Dustless was mocking her in disguise. My heart is old. Dustless sighed. After experiencing several worlds, his appearance has never changed, but the things he has experienced are too many to count, which is beyond the imagination of ordinary people. He beat Uchiha Madara, abused Hashirama, kicked a marine admiral, humiliated Whitebeard, killed the so-called gods. In short, Dustless has experienced too much. Every time he thinks about it, his head is dizzy. In fact, His real age is more than hundreds of years. By the way, where did that little girl Liliana go? Glancing around, Dustless found that Liliana has long disappeared, and even Athena went somewhere. Really, Liliana still likes to meddle in other people's business. Salvatore Tony's actions have nothing to do with us. Why did she get involved? Thinking of the Hera's stone pillar used for worship here, Dustless couldn't help but shake his head. He already vaguely understood where Liliana went. The heart of a saint is playing tricks. In a dark secret room where you can't even see your own fingers. The emerald stone pillar was filled with the vicissitudes of life, exuding a mysterious light, and the ancient dragon carvings on the stone pillar can be seen. It's estimated that it's been there for many years. Ta-ta-ta! Light footsteps suddenly came, and a young man with a savage face and a big sword on his shoulder appeared in the dark space. His eyes often jumped with a cold and sharp light, and his appearance was very threatening. However, the only thing that made people afraid was the scar on this mysterious expert's face. It was especially terrifying in the dark night. Looking closely, this person was none other than Salvatore Anthony. Salvatore Care Tony? Liliana caught sight of the young man's figure and recalled the conflict between him and Dustless. Her heart could not help but sink as she held the western sword tightly with both of her hands. He looked as if he was facing a great enemy. Humph, that fellow's companion? Wherever he goes, he's like a ghost. Salvatore Tony snorted. Dustless had caused him a serious psychological barrier that he would never forget. The gap between them was so big that even Salvatore Tony, who had always been optimistic, was about to suffer from depression. Also, the scar that Athena left on my face, I will pay her back double in the future. Salvatore vowed with an expression full of endless confidence. But why did you attack Hera's stone pillar? Liliana was displeased and said sternly, the consequences of splitting Hera's stone pillar are unimaginable. That is a dragon condensed from the evolution of this land. Once it is damaged, this land may not be able to recover for several years. Idiot. Have you forgotten? I'm a god slayer, a king. Salvatore Tony smiled indifferently. If it can't be recovered, then so be it. What does it have to do with me? Humans are selfish, and the god slayer is no exception. Dustless and Athena had destroyed him one after another, leaving an indelible impression on Salvatore Tony. Therefore it was good to release the dragon. It would be best if it could attract a few dragon slayers. I see. Are you planning to use the dragon that was spurted out by the essence of the earth as bait? Liliana was stunned. She suddenly understood Salvatore Tony's motive. This guy was devastated and crushed by Dustless and Athena, leaving a serious psychological trauma. Therefore, he wanted to use the dragon to attract some disobedient gods and kill them to obtain authority. Only after obtaining new authority could he continue to fight with Dustless and Athena. Those two monsters were too strong. Even if you obtain new authority, you can't defeat the king. Liliana's face was cold. In her heart, Dustless was the strongest. Even Athena, a god, was subdued by him. Marquis Warban was also killed by Dustless, and Salvatore Tony was able to escape by luck. You are right. At my current level, I am indeed no match for Athena and Dustless. I even suspect that the two of them can kill me instantly. Salvatore Tony was disappointed and frustrated. It was fine if it was Athena. After all, she was the trinity of gods. But they were all godslayers. Why did Dustless have to be considered a cheat? It was too unfair. Therefore Salvatore, who was unwilling to give up, could only find another way. He chose to hunt the gods to obtain other authorities. However, the disobedient gods could not appear at will. The dragon formed by the essence of the earth was the best bait to attract the disobedient gods. Ignorant fool! Liliana's words were full of sarcasm. She suddenly sneered. Do you think that Lord Dustless has been using authority so far? Then you will never be able to surpass him. I can tell you clearly that the king is using his own strength, not the authority of the gods. He disdains it. You, a knight, dare to look down on me? Salvatore Tony's old face turned black. It was fine that Dustless and Athena looked down on him, but he could not bear Liliana's sarcasm. Chapter 1456. Liliana ignored Salvatore Tony's rage. Her expression was as usual, and her bright eyes glowed with scorching colors. She did not feel that she had spoken arrogantly or that there was something wrong with her. After all, most of the God Slayers fought with the authority of God. Just like Kusanagi Protector in the original work, would he still be powerful without the authority of Wells Lana? Obviously it was impossible. Dustless had been using his own power from the beginning to the end. Are you tired of living? Salvatore glanced at Liliana coldly, and the murderous intent on his face almost materialized. Dustless humiliated him. There was nothing he could do about it. He was not as strong as Dustless. Unfortunately, you are just a little knight. You should be honored that I am talking to you. Now, you are humiliating me even more. How dare you? Humph, I will deal with you after I finish my business. Salvatore Tony glanced at Liliana fiercely, and finally chose to kill Hera's stone pillar first. I heard that you are very strong, but there is nothing in this world that I can't split open. Salvatore Tony stared at Hera's stone pillar that was filled with emerald light. His eyes were filled with cold light, and the heavy sword in his hand was unsheathed with all his strength. Whoosh! The sword blade slashed straight at Hera's stone pillar, and the power was unstoppable. Damn it! Seeing this, Liliana was furious. She did not expect this guy to be so willful. He slashed without hesitation. He was indeed the most brainless king. Poochie! Hera's stone pillar suddenly split into two, and a large amount of light suddenly erupted into the sky. A large mass of green light appeared, and the outline of a dragon faintly appeared. Hee. It's best to attract a few more disobedient gods. Salvatore Tony smiled sinisterly, and his tone revealed endless expectations. For creatures like dragons, some disobedient gods had a unique hobby of killing. Next, it's time to deal with you. Salvatore Tony shifted his gaze and stared at Liliana with emotionless eyes. He said in a deep voice, I'm not a despicable guy like Marquis Oban. I won't capture you and threaten others. So draw your sword. This idiot. Could it be that he still wants to kidnap Liliana? Damn it, do you think I'm air? But this guy's reaction is really slow. I've been here for half a day, but he didn't even notice my presence. Dustless, who was observing in the dark, shook his head. He was speechless at this 8th grader. At the same time, a loud and clear dragon's roar resounded through the endless night. Looking up, they saw a large emerald dragon spreading its wings and flying high in the sky. Its extraordinary and mighty appearance made people feel deep veneration. The dragon's roar coming from its throat made people want to worship it uncontrollably. He's just playing to the gallery. Dustless found this so-called dragon costume strange no matter how he looked at it. He felt an indescribable discomfort. He always felt that this guy was like a flying lizard, without any of the arrogance that a dragon should have. But this Salvatore Tony isn't too stupid. He knows that he's no match for me. He wants to obtain more authority and even wants to use this dragon as a bait. His intelligence is barely passable. Dustless nodded slightly. As a transmigrator, he knew that there were many dragon slayers in this world. Moreover, there seemed to be such a person in Italy right now. Now, I'll deal with you first. Salvatore Tony's eyes were like torches. He touched the hideous scar on his face. Even though it had already formed a scar and would recover after resting for a while, he still felt a stabbing pain in his heart. It was fine if he was defeated by Dustless. It was fine if he was defeated by his maidservant. If he was defeated by this knight in front of him, Salvatore Tony felt that he should just die. There was no need to live anymore. Chapter 1457. Roar, 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 roar. The ancient dragon roar that belonged to this era shook the heavens and the earth. Even hundreds of miles away, the arrogant and loud voice could be heard. How can a lizard be so arrogant? Dustless pouted, considering if he should release the Great Red to attack them. After all, the Great Red was over 100 meters tall, and this dragon formed by the Earth's spiritual energy was just a pocket-sized toy. However, Salvatore Tony is quite smart. He actually wants to use this dragon to attract the disobedient god's attention. That's a good idea. Dustless sighed with emotion. At the beginning of the mythological system, it was mainly a matriarchal society. However, as time changed, the gods led by Zeus, the god of the sky, finally overthrew the matriarchal society at that time. Creatures like dragons were very sacred in the matriarchal society at that time, such as Athena. On the contrary, the male gods led by Zeus were not interested in dragons. Originally, I'm not interested in a little girl like you. However, since you dare to provoke me, the king, then don't blame me for being ruthless. Salvatore Tony approached Liliana with his sword, giving her a huge sense of oppression. After all, this kid was a real god slayer. His strength was far from what a little girl like Liliana could compare with. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Salvatore Tony stomped his feet on the ground and pounced forward like a storm. He swung his great sword horizontally. Liliana was shocked and cursed in her heart. Not only was this guy's swordsmanship extremely strong, but his speed was also unbelievably fast. Clang clang clang. Although Liliana barely blocked Salvatore Tony's heavy sword, she was also forced to retreat a distance of 5 to 6 meters before she could stabilize her body. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Salvatore Tony refused to stop and pounced forward again with his great sword. Is this the power of a king? Sure enough, I'm still far from it. Liliana smiled bitterly. She looked at Salvatore Tony, who was rushing over, and felt despair. Regardless of whether she would kill him or not, she did not plan to live anymore. As a knight, she was captured by the enemy. Although Salvatore Tony would not use Liliana to threaten Dustless, she still chose to die. Have you made up your mind? Young girl. Salvatore Anthony jumped up, and the raised sword fell in an instant. Clang, clang, clang. The huge sword slashed down, and the huge vibration made Salvatore Tony's arm numb. He opened his eyes wide and saw a thin figure grabbing his sword. What kind of freak is this guy? How could he grab my sword with one hand? Salvatore Tony's old face turned green. It was fine if others were heaven-defying and abnormal, because there was still a degree to speak of. But this guy in front of him was a living prehistoric monster. The newcomer's messy black hair fluttered in the wind. He was not tall, but not too short either. He was about 1.75 meters tall. Even the dark night sky could not cover his deep and bright black eyes. They were very dazzling. Dustless. It's you again. Salvatore Tony put away his great sword, knowing that the show he had carefully prepared for today had come to an end. From just now, Salvatore Tony came to a helpless and cruel reality. He seemed to be unable to catch up with Dustless in this life. You have guts to hit my knight. Dustless's face did not change, but his tone was obviously low. Marquis Oban has disappeared. I don't need to say more. You know what this means. Hearing this, Salvatore Tony's heart sank. He naturally understood what Dustless meant. It was obvious that Marquis Warban had been killed. The God Slayer could be killed? To be fair, if he had not seen Dustless, Salvatore Tony would not have believed it at all. But after seeing how powerful Dustless was with his own eyes, Salvatore Tony understood one thing. The so-called God Slayer was, in fact, just a slightly bigger, stronger and fatter ant in front of a certain person. For example, Dustless in front of him. Salvatore Tony often felt that he could not catch up with Dustless even if he rode on a rocket. I am indeed not as good as you. Not to mention other aspects, even my best swordsmanship is not as good as yours. Salvatore Tony sighed. He was so disappointed that he sat on the ground. He was not as good as Dustless in what he was best at. It was needless to say how depressed he was. At the same time, a beast's roar came again. It was obviously different from the soul-stirring dragon's roar just now. This roar was full of endless nobility, like a god descending from the sky. This is the god of disobedience. Liliana and Salvatore Tony's eyes lit up. Dustless also looked at the sky. Under the black night sky, a man riding a winged Pegasus descended from the sky. This person had long golden hair that was as dazzling as gold. He had a face that was more beautiful than a woman's and exuded a noble temperament. This dragon formed by the eruption of the underground spiritual energy has indeed attracted that guy, Dustless said softly. Obviously, he already knew the identity of the person who had come. Which god of disobedience is it? Salvatore Tony and Liliana asked at the same time. His name is Perseus. He is a hero and is quite strong. A black shadow suddenly descended from the sky and answered for Dustless. But this guy's behavior is really bad. He actually killed a dragon shamelessly. This crisp and pleasant voice was obviously a female voice, and Dustless was quite familiar with it. Without looking, he was 100% sure that it was Athena. Chapter 1458. Dustless glanced at Athena with interest. In fact, she could be said to be of the same origin as this dragon, so she was quite disgusted with gods like Perseus. Ao at the same time, the arrogant cry from before descended from the sky again. Dustless frowned slightly and glanced over. A blond man suddenly appeared in front of him. "This guy is my prey." Salvatore Toni was overjoyed. After being severely ravaged by Dustless, he had a psychological shadow. If he wanted to defeat this guy, he had to obtain a stronger and more heaven-defying authority. Whoosh! Whoosh! Salvatore Toni ran away while carrying his huge sword. "Are you just going to watch him leave without doing anything?" Athena stared at Dustless and instigated. "If Perseus is killed by Salvatore Toni, obtaining his authority may cause you trouble." Dustless heard Athena's words and just curled his lips and said in disdain, "Your words are not convincing at all. You just want to trick me into dealing with Perseus." As for the reason, it was probably because Perseus bullied that dragon. God slayers and disobedient gods are natural enemies. This is not a trick. It is your duty to get rid of him. Athena was unmoved and still maintained a righteous expression. And Athena's eyes narrowed slightly, and her face quickly warmed up. She revealed a gentle smile and said, "Even if you don't find trouble with Perseus, do you think he will let you go? The existence of god slayers is a threat to disobedient gods." The hostile relationship between god slayers and disobedient gods was destined and could not be changed. "Is that so?" Dustless's gaze fell on Athena's eyes and said bluntly, "You are the disobedient god, but you still get along well with me." Hearing this, Athena's lips curled into a smug smile and said loudly, "That is because you are greedy for my beauty." Puff! Dustless almost fell down, and his eyeballs almost fell out. He didn't expect Athena to be so shameless. He hadn't done anything out of line to Athena, even though what she said was the truth. "In short, I won't join a boring duel for no reason. It's better to go back and sleep." Wu Chen shook his head slightly. When he was about to turn around and leave, a delicate figure stopped him. "My king, it's your responsibility to protect the world," Liliana said with a serious expression. "Seriously, why are there so many Chinibu youngsters around me? All of them want to save the world. I'm not a great saint, and I don't have the heart of a saint. I'm almost a nanny now." Dustless did not know whether to laugh or cry. Liliana's stern gaze was as firm as a rock. If he did not kill Perseus today, he would not be able to leave. Just leave it to Salvatore Toni. Turning his head, he glanced at Salvatore Toni, whose face was full of excitement as if he had been injected with chicken blood. Dustless decisively pushed the responsibility to this guy. "No, no, no." Athena gently shook her white jade thumb, blinked her eyes and said seriously, "This is your territory. How can you let Salvatore Toni deal with the enemy?" Hearing this, Dustless was speechless. This is Italy. To some extent, it is indeed his territory, or rather, this is Erica's territory. Does Athena mean that my family is in trouble? Are you going to stand by and do nothing? This ridiculous reason is barely acceptable. Dustless had a strange look on his face. He didn't expect Athena to find a reason to trick him into taking action. Hey, God Slayer. The god of disobedience is right in front of your eyes. Draw your sword, God Slayer. An arrogant voice came slowly. Dustless raised his head slightly, and a sharp arrow was coming quickly. "You want to die. I didn't want to fight with you, but you have to find trouble." Dustless frowned. An array of light shot out from his fingertips. Laser. The person who wanted to attack Dustless with an attack was Perseus, who was riding a white Pegasus. He looked arrogant, and his handsome face was full of indescribable pride. His eyes were full of confidence and arrogance. Boom, boom, boom. The golden light beam and the falling arrow came into close contact, and the two turned into dust together, and there was no clear winner. Where is that idiot Salvatore Toni? Dustless looked around, and his eyes shot straight into the distance. His dark and deep eyes looked around, and he did not find the trace of Salvatore Toni for a long time. In desperation, Dustless could only use observation hockey to search. No wonder Salvatore Tony was willing to give up Perseus. It turned out that he found a better prey. What a guy who likes the new and hates the old. Dustless complained with dissatisfaction. Through the perception of observation hockey, he found that Salvatore Tony was chasing a black shadow. It should be Métis without a doubt. No wonder Athena instigated me to deal with Perseus. She was probably afraid that I would discover Métis' existence and kill her. What a thoughtful little girl. Looking at Athena with interest, Dustless changed his attitude towards this slender girl. What's with that look in your eyes? Finding that Dustless was looking at her with great interest, Athena felt guilty, and she felt that her whole body and heart were seen through. Don't ignore my existence, you two. Perseus had an unhappy expression on his face. I came to such a flashy entrance, but you two only care about flirting with each other and ignoring my existence. How dare you? Chapter 1459. Perseus was furious. You two bastards should at least pay attention to my face. After all, I am a prestigious public figure. But you two bastards are flirting with each other in public. Moreover, you are showing off your love in front of a god. Do you have any rules? Do you know the law? Yo! Dustless waved his hand and looked at Perseus in boredom. He asked with a lazy expression, kneel down and kowtow 3 times, then leave this place. You can barely survive. Hearing this, Perseus's old face twitched. He asked with a fake smile, what did you say? I didn't hear it clearly. Please repeat it for me. I must have heard it wrong. Perseus shook his head in his heart. Would anyone in the world dare to talk to him like this? The answer was absolutely no. Even Athena, who was also a god, did not dare to speak so arrogantly. It's fine if you are just an idiot, but now it seems that you are deaf. In the world, how can there be such a stupid god like you? Dustless mocked without changing his expression. Hearing this, Perseus, who couldn't bear it anymore, was furious. He raised his hand and several sharp arrows were shot at Dustless along with his resentment. Pucci! 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 Even though he was hit on the spot, Dustless still stood there safe and sound. There was a contemptuous smile on his face. What kind of freak is this bastard? And he killed a god, right? What kind of power is this? This kind of attack seems to be immune to physical attacks. Which god has this left arm power? If I catch him, I will definitely chop him up. Perseus was extremely depressed. He cursed the bastard who threw the glint fruit to Dustless. Physical attacks did not work. Was there any need to continue this battle? Want to run away? A scythe appeared behind Athena. She stared at Perseus with torch-like eyes. She keenly noticed the intention to retreat in Perseus' eyes. Her cold eyes quietly told him that as long as he dared to run away, she would kill him. Run! Perseus's mouth twitched, and he shouted angrily. It's really vulgar to use such a vulgar word to describe me. You have no taste, Your Excellency Athena. You're just a god from the countryside. What's there to be proud of? Dustless curled his lips and bluntly attacked. Puh! Perseus wanted to cry, but no tears came out. He gritted his teeth and glared at Dustless and Athena. He sadly found that, in terms of strength, he was not even as good as Dustless and Athena at bickering. Of course, the gods did not have the ability to bicker. They preferred to solve problems with their fists. Swish! Swish! Dustless transformed into a fleeting golden light that whizzed out. He came without a shadow and left without a trace. Even he found it difficult to capture that fleeting speed. When he realized that Dustless had appeared, Perseus was already in big trouble. Light speed kick. When Dustless's body appeared, the big shiny foot had already mercilessly hit Perseus' cheek. Perseus' entire body disappeared in an instant after being kicked. Swish! 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 Perseus wanted to stabilize his body, but he couldn't walk at all. The powerful force was too exaggerated. It was as if he was hit by a 1,000-ton giant mountain. Ka-ka-ka! After retreating for a few hundred meters, Perseus barely managed to stabilize his body. He smashed through several walls, and a 200 to 300 meter long ditch was formed on the ground. There was still blood at the corner of his mouth. He was in a very sorry state. This bastard, he can't be a monster, right? Perseus' face was black. He realized that he couldn't even speak properly. His mouth seemed to have been kicked crooked by Dustless. It was so painful that he grimaced and complained incessantly. But the physical pain was far less than the mental blow. How was he going to show his face in the future after his mouth was kicked crooked? How was he going to face others if others knew about it? If he couldn't wash away the shame, he should just find a place with no one around and kill himself. Anyway, he would probably be mocked and ridiculed by others. This bastard doesn't give me any face at all. Perseus was furious. I hit you for a long time, and your family was unharmed. But Dustless moved a little and my mouth was kicked crooked by you. How am I supposed to live? Could it be that this guy's head was smashed silly by the impact just now? He's even stuttering. Dustless went to Athena's side and asked speechlessly. Perseus's speech was abnormal. I say you! Athena opened her mouth and realized that she was speechless in the end. She closed her mouth again and couldn't help but sympathize with Perseus. You were clearly the one who kicked someone else's mouth crooked, causing Perseus to be unable to speak eloquently. Now, you have to say that Perseus's head was smashed silly. This speed of shirking responsibility is too fast. You're really going too far. But this Perseus isn't that easy to defeat, Athena suddenly said. It seemed that she was very familiar with Perseus's abilities. It's indeed different. His recovery ability is amazing. Dustless's eyes widened slightly and nodded undeniably. Following his line of sight, he was surprised to find that the footprint left on Perseus's handsome face was quickly recovering. This seems to be Sun's ability. I still remember that this kid used this ability to resurrect after being killed by Kusanagi Protector in the original work. Dustless nodded slightly. This resurrection ability is quite good. Just as Dustless was thinking about how to deal with Perseus, the silent Athena made a shocking move. While Dustless was thinking, her delicate red lips took the initiative to seal Dustless's mouth. Chapter 1460. Athena's sudden action not only caught Dustless off guard and surprised him, even Perseus, who had threatened to teach Dustless a lesson, was stunned. His entire body was filled with jealousy, like a vinegar jar. Damn it, how can this guy? Perseus was so depressed that his teeth were about to shatter. He was really jealous of Dustless's luck with women. It should be understood that the God Slayer and the God of Disobedience were two completely opposite existences. They were destined to fight to the death. It was Athena who took the initiative to kiss him. Dustless was definitely cheating. Athena, you. Woo-woo. Even Dustless was depressed, let alone Perseus, who did not understand. When he was about to open his mouth to ask, he realized that he could not speak at all. Humph. You two extremes should just die. A divine bow appeared in his hand, and countless arrows were aimed at Athena and Dustless. Perseus's face was filled with coldness. He pulled the bowstring to its limit and finally shot it out without hesitation. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The dense cold light was about to shoot through Dustless and Athena. This guy. Seeing this, Dustless raised his eyebrows. He could completely ignore the existence of the arrows. After all, this kind of simple physical attack was unable to break through the elemental transformation. However, Athena would be pierced through, even though she also had the ability to not die. Let's stop here. Now is not the time to be intimate. Just as he was about to push Athena away, a bunch of memories about Perseus's past appeared in his mind. In a daze, Dustless understood why Athena offered her red lips. It's completely unnecessary. But hee-hee. I'm a bastard who doesn't take advantage of it. Dustless blinked and smiled rather wretchedly. His gaze focused on the incoming arrow, and his eyes underwent a drastic change. Smile properly for me. When you're shot through, I won't help you collect your corpses. Even though they were hundreds of meters away, Perseus could still see the faint smile on Dustless's face. He immediately flew into a rage and could even see the mockery in his eyes. Dustless's unbridled arrogance was clearly saying that if it weren't for him, Athena wouldn't have taken the initiative to come to him. He wanted to thank him. Bang, bang, bang. At this moment, a few muffled explosions suddenly sounded in the air. Then, Perseus realized that the divine arrow he trusted had disappeared into thin air. Strange, what's going on? Perseus widened his eyes and said without hesitation. The arrow that he had shot out had mysteriously disappeared. He didn't even know who did it. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Several more beams of cold light shot out, but the result was the same. A few muffled explosions sounded in the air, and then the divine arrows were destroyed by the destructive force. Who the hell is it? Don't play tricks behind my back. Stand up if you have the guts. Perseus shouted loudly after carefully locking down the area within a radius of a few hundred meters. However, what responded to him was endless silence. This idiot. Does he think that someone else is helping me? Dustless's mouth moved slightly, and his face was full of sneers. His right eye had undergone a drastic change and turned into Rinnegan Sharingan. The power of his eyes was enough to annihilate the world. Tomb of Samsara. Border prison. Perhaps Perseus couldn't find it, but Dustless, who had Rinnegan, could see it clearly. His shadow was approaching Perseus. Just now, it was his shadow that blocked the arrow. It was ridiculous that this guy thought that someone was secretly helping Dustless. A mysterious man with countless strange tricks. After a while, Athena was completely Dustless's mouth and glanced back at Perseus. She could feel Perseus's resentment and entanglement, but she could only smile in response. This guy has an immortal body. Dustless said enviously through the knowledge passed by Athena. Immortal body is a rare ability, but whether it is Athena or Perseus, they both have this kind of ability. They are worthy of the name of God. So what? You can still deprive him of his ability with your power. Why don't you thank me? Athena put her hands on her hips and looked very cute. Thank. Hearing this, Dustless showed a malicious smile, shrugged his shoulders and said shamelessly, I really don't have any valuable gifts, and you took advantage of me for no reason, so now I have to take it back. Defend my dignity as a man. As soon as his voice fell, Dustless used a speed faster than the speed of light to rush in front of Athena and gently pecked her fair face. You bastard! After being stunned for a few seconds, Athena, who came back to her senses, was shocked and angry. Her cheeks quickly heated up and turned dark red in an instant. I kindly told you about Perseus's past and background, but you actually didn't recognize my kindness and took advantage of it. Aren't you too shameless? In reality, that kind of spirit is dispensable. Even if you deprive him of his sun ability, it might not have any effect. He can still be resurrected. Dustless lazily said softly, Of course, this doesn't mean that he is invincible. As long as I make up my mind, I can still make him suffer a fate worse than death. In the original work, Kusanagi Sentinel deprived Perseus of his ability, but this guy was still resurrected in the end. At the same time, Dustless's shadows had quickly approached Perseus, but this guy was still staring at Dustless with an expression of, I will kill you. Chapter 1461. Dustless smiled without saying a word. This was what it meant to be short-sighted. What is this guy laughing at? Athena frowned and stared at Dustless indignantly. She said unhappily, I have already told you everything about Perseus. Hurry up and deal with him. You owe me a favor. I have already dealt with him. It's just that you didn't see it clearly. Dustless shrugged and said helplessly. In this world, he was the only one who could see clearly. Everyone else was the same as blind people. Are you looking down on my IQ? Athena was even more dissatisfied. She raised her fist threateningly, as if saying that she would beat him up if he dared to lie to her. Take a closer look. Silver looked in Perseus' direction and smiled very calmly. Maybe Athena couldn't see it, but Dustless saw his shadows clearly. At this moment, Perseus was completely surrounded. Slap! A sound attracted Athena's attention. She looked up and saw that Perseus' face was inexplicably red. Moreover, there was a clear palm print on his face. This is... Athena was instantly dumbfounded. Her jewel-like purple-black eyes stared blankly at Perseus. Then, she released thousands of owls and searched for a long time, but she still couldn't figure out who attacked Perseus. You did it! Looking at Dustless's gloating expression, Athena rolled her eyes and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This guy dared to slap the god of disobedience. Athena secretly gave him a thumbs up. Who else do you think did it? This guy has a crazy and cool expression. It's an eyesore to look at him. Let him be disgraced. By the way, we can take some photos and hand them over to the magazine. We can also make some extra money. I'm embarrassed about the money spent on eating Jing every day. Wu Chen said with a serious expression. Hearing this, Athena couldn't help but spit out. Fortunately, Dustless was elementalized. You slapped him for this reason? Athena's mouth twitched. You know nothing. Staring at Athena snappily, Dustless said righteously. There are a lot of brainless fans in this part of Japan. They can record it and sell it for a good price. It was rare for him to pay attention to Athena. Dustless took out the camera and focused on Perseus. Pa 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 pa. In just a minute, Perseus was slapped hundreds of times. It was extremely miserable. In just a few minutes, Perseus' face was swollen like a pig's head. Bastard! Who are you? Come out! Perseus had 1,000,000 mythological beasts galloping in his heart. He was being treated like a pig for no reason, and his heart was bleeding. Although the ability of the sun could be perfectly restored, anyone would be angry if they were hit by someone for no reason. What made Perseus the most was that he didn't even know who did it. Ka ka ka. In order to capture the moment when Perseus was in a sorry state, Dustless seized the opportunity to take a few exciting pictures. Bastard, are you the one who did it? Perseus sensed Do Wuchen's existence and immediately pointed his spear at him. He roared, Just you wait, I won't let you off so easily. Is that so? Hearing this, Dustless smiled indifferently and snapped his fingers very lazily. Bang 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 bang. The shadows received Dustless' order and immediately carried out a series of inhumane destruction on Perseus. His cheeks that had just recovered turned purple again. Hee 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 hee. Seeing such a funny scene, even with Athena's temperament, she also let out an intoxicating smile. This guy was really too tragic. As the god of disobedience, he was extremely miserable at this moment. He was almost beaten up mercilessly by Dustless. Perseus let out a blood-curdling scream. Dustless's shadows ruthlessly ravaged him. What was even more impressive was that they did not even let go of his manhood. Perseus wanted to cry but had no tears. His previous prestige had completely disappeared. He was stunned by Dustless's violent beating. He suddenly realized that being alive was also an incomparable thing. A little bit can be sold for a good price. In a short while, Dustless used up all his films. Looking at the miserable Perseus, he waved his hand, and the attacks of the shadows also stopped. Perseus' value was already gone. This last attack was left to Dustless himself. You bastard! Perceiving that the rain of bullets that destroyed him had stopped, Perseus's face turned green. These few minutes were definitely the most painful and difficult period in his life. As a man, the most important part of his body was destroyed countless times. Although he could recover without limit, this kind of miserable experience would leave a psychological shadow even for a god. Therefore, Perseus stared at Dustless with red eyes. He even had the thought of swallowing him alive. They were both men. As a man, why should he make things difficult for another man? You're already in such a miserable state, and you still want to take revenge on me? Wash your neck clean and let me kill you. This way you can also be free. Perseus, with such a miserable memory, you must be suffering for living. Dustless walked leisurely towards Perseus. This guy doesn't seem to intend to deprive him of the sun ability. Does he intend to kill him directly? Is this really okay? Athena asked doubtfully. Even if I die, I'll bury you with me. Perseus, who was destroyed by Dustless, roared. Dustless was the stain of his life. This kind of person must be eradicated. Chapter 1462. Perseus planned to perish together with Dustless and leave behind this mark of shame. Living would be worse than death. Therefore, he planned to drag Dustless down to hell with him. However, even though dreams were beautiful, reality was cruel and merciless. Ta-ta-ta! A large sword flashed in Perseus's hand. He was like a hungry beast, and Dustless was a super feast that made one's appetite wet. He attacked without any regard for the consequences. Heaven-gathering cloud sword. Light flashed, and a divine sword that could cut through iron like mud appeared in his hand. You want to perish together with me? Dustless opened his mouth and revealed a contemptuous smile. It wasn't that he looked down on Perseus, but even if 10 Perseus were stacked together, he might not be able to kill him. Perseus's biggest highlight, the sun. However, Dustless also had this ability. To him, being immortal was just a small problem. As for the other advantages, there was no need to talk about them. Boom, boom, boom. The slashes of the two collided, and a huge explosion was heard. Violent airwaves swept out, and the buildings within dozens of meters were shattered. Obvious cracks were also left on the buildings 100 meters away. Ta-ta-ta. Perseus's expression changed drastically. Dustless's explosive power almost sent him flying. Although he barely blocked his slash, Perseus was also forced to retreat by the powerful force. He was in a sorry state. Not only that, even if Perseus could barely block Dustless' slash, his arm was still numb from the shock. He almost couldn't hold his sword and fell to the ground. What kind of monster is this bastard? Perseus gritted his teeth. He didn't know how many times he had repeated this sentence, but every time they fought, the shock that Dustless brought to him made him speak without thinking. You are still in a daze when you are fighting with me? Dustless's sharp eyes caught Perseus's restless mind. He sneered and went forward with his sword. The golden edge took advantage of Perseus's carelessness and cut his cheek. A scorched and hideous wound suddenly appeared on Perseus's handsome face. It was extremely terrifying. Ah! You have an additional scar. You are much more domineering and cool. Even I'm scared. Dustless pretended to be scared, and then nodded with a smile as if saying, You have to thank me. F***ck your grandpa. Perseus was so angry that he vomited blood. Ignoring the stinging pain all over his body, he raised his sword and slashed towards Dustless's face. This shameless guy was really too quiet. His skin was as thick as a city wall. Putting aside the fact that he had taken advantage of Perseus, he was still so sarcastic. In particular, Dustless had such an aggrieved expression as if he was at a disadvantage. It was simply an insult to Perseus's intelligence. Clang, clang, clang. As the two of them fought, the piercingly cold sounds of swords striking against each other resounded endlessly. It was an extremely intense exchange of blows. Bang, bang, bang. Dustless's eyes turned cold, and he increased his strength. Perseus was instantly sent flying. Seizing this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, his silver hand swept out with the Heaven Cluster Cloud Sword. Poochie! It had to be said that Dustless was indeed shameless. He specifically chose Perseus' vital parts and bombarded them indiscriminately. Perseus, who was extremely depressed, was frightened by this shameless fighting style and became timid, causing him to be full of flaws. Perseus really wanted to ask Dustless, Who taught you such shameless swordsmanship? However, he was too embarrassed to ask. Sometimes when he took the initiative to ask the other party a question, it meant that he had lost. Perseus did not want to lose to such a scum. It was too sullen. Poochie! Seizing this rare opportunity, Dustless stabbed out with the Heaven Cluster Cloud Sword in his hand. As a man, Perseus' most important part was immediately hit. As the Heaven Cluster Cloud Sword was formed from compressed light, it carried a blazing temperature. Perseus' most important part was immediately hit. Ayo 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 ayo. A wail that was even more miserable than a pig being slaughtered resounded through the night. Perseus rolled on the ground in pain, and a disgusting burnt smell could be smelled in the air. What is this bastard's brain made of? He can actually come up with such a sinister move to deal with the god of disobedience. Athena's face was red. She spat lightly and turned her head. Perseus's miserable wail made even Athena panic. She couldn't help but tremble as she said, If you can be reincarnated as a human in your next life, remember not to provoke people like Dustless. If you see him in the future, it's best to take a detour. Athena sincerely felt that as the god of disobedience, having such a nightmarish enemy like Dustless was simply too unlucky. To be honest, it's great that you have the ability, son. Staring at the rolling Perseus, Dustless suddenly laughed. It was very gentle and light, but in the ears of Perseus and Athena, it was as terrifying as a demon. What do you want? Perseus shivered. He was really afraid of such a pervert who did things without a bottom line. There's no need to worry. I just want to invite you to participate in an experiment for the benefit of mankind. Dustless still had a smile on his face as he slowly approached Perseus. He didn't reveal the key points and was very mysterious. Could it be that he wants to? Athena suddenly thought of a terrible idea. The way she looked at Dustless was particularly strange. Not to mention Perseus, who was panicking and retreating. Even Athena also took a few steps back. Now, many men can't enjoy a normal married life. Let me observe and study you 10,000 times. Anyway, you have the ability of the sun, so it can be repaired. Puff! A large patch of blood appeared on the dark ground. Perseus, who was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of old blood. He looked at Dustless bitterly. His resentful eyes were obviously saying, "Who wants to be your lab rat? You bastard! Hurry up and die!" Chapter 1463. Dustless slowly approached, and Perseus became more and more nervous. He knew that if he did not think of a way to defend himself, he would definitely be severely destroyed by Dustless again after he recovered. His pride would definitely not allow him to do that. Swish, swish, swish. The flash of light was extremely dazzling. Perseus was shocked. He knew that Dustless had cheated with his speed again, so he hurriedly picked up his sword to defend himself. Clang, clang, clang. This time, Perseus still received Dustless's attack like before, but the situation was even more serious and terrifying than the last time. Perseus' strength was not as good as Dustless, so he was forced to retreat. Boom, boom, boom. The huge energy ripples produced by the collision of the slashes were destructive. The ground was flattened, and a deep crater like a meteorite appeared. The most terrifying thing was that Dustless made Perseus finally understand what it meant to surpass the power of gods. Clang, clang, clang. In an instant, they slashed at each other hundreds of times. Every time, Perseus was at a serious disadvantage. Compared to Dustless, who was wielding the sword with one hand, he had to use both hands. Light speed kick. Taking advantage of the fact that Perseus could not defend himself, Dustless raised his leg and gave him a heavy kick. Boom, boom, boom. His face was seriously attacked again. The huge flash burned Perseus' body, and a nauseating smell filled the air. At this moment, he did not have the demeanor of a god of disobedience. He was simply like a beggar. Swish, swish, swish. An ear-piercing roar resounded throughout the world. Every time he heard this loud sound that was about to shatter his ears, Perseus's heart was filled with depression and tragedy. This was Dustless's signal to attack. Perseus looked up and saw a golden sword slashing straight at him. He hurriedly took out his precious sword to block it, but it was useless. Poochie! Perseus' precious accessory was directly cut off, and the flash pierced through his body. From his head to his stomach, there was a long and narrow scar. Gotcha! Dustless deliberately cut off a certain important part of Perseus's body. The part that he had just recovered once again felt a fatal pain. I had #yen%#%. With a twisted face, Perseus cursed at Dustless. In his heart, a million King Alpaca's army were howling madly. Mother****, this bastard is too much. Don't worry, I won't kill you. My goal is to make you a eunuch 10,000 times. How many times had it been? Including the previous times, I don't think it's more than 100. Dustless said meaningfully, showing an expression of having to work harder. You. Perseus was so angry that he was trembling. His entire face was red as he cursed in his heart. If you personally experience what it feels like to be a eunuch, I'm afraid you will hate it even once. Come, let's continue our work. With a faint smile, Dustless forced Perseus into a corner and revealed a smile that was even more sinister and sinister than a demon's. Hurry up and go away, you lunatic! Perseus roared. His tone was filled with powerlessness. He really wanted to die. Compared to Dustless, a demon was as kind as an angel. Get lost! Picking up the surrounding stones, Perseus threw them with all his might. Tsk tsk. If you knew this would happen, you wouldn't have done it in the first place. Dodging the incoming stones, Dustless had a mocking expression on his face. Originally, he was not interested in fighting with Perseus. However, this idiot insisted on testing Dustless's strength with the theory that the god slayer and the disobedient god were heaven and earth. In the end, he could not blame others for his tragic ending. Looking at the evil Dustless, Perseus roared, "Even if I die." "Oh right!" Perseus's eyes flashed with a bright light. He suddenly thought of a perfect escape plan. He was extremely excited. He could finally escape from this demon's control. Ha 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 ha. The joy of surviving a disaster came from Perseus's mouth. He was so excited that his whole body was trembling. Did this guy go crazy? Athena and Dustless lowered their heads and guessed. Perseus's abnormal state was really puzzling. Especially Athena, who was the most speechless. Dustless was also the #1 weirdo since ancient times to be able to drive a god crazy. However, this was only the beginning. Perseus's next move caused Dustless and Athena to be shocked in disbelief. He saw that Perseus was pointing a dagger at him with a cold gleam. Is this bastard thinking of committing suicide? Looking at each other, Dustless and Athena could see the intention of committing suicide in each other's eyes. Ha 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 ha. In this case, you can forget about torturing me. Perseus laughed loudly. His high-pitched laughter gave people the illusion that he had taken advantage of them. As a disobedient god, isn't he taking things too hard? Dustless was speechless. He should at least cherish his life. No, I can understand why he did this, Athena suddenly said. Combined with Dustless's actions, all of this was normal. Living was also endless humiliation, so it was better to die and end it all. Poochie! The sound of flesh being cut into pieces could be heard. Looking carefully, Perseus was indeed ruthless and strong. He was afraid that he would not be able to kill himself and actually separated his head from his body. His actions are really ruthless. Dustless secretly gave him a thumbs up. He killed himself in such a ruthless way, separating his head from his body. No one else could do it. However, this idiot is too arrogant. He makes it seem like I don't know his ability. Chapter 1464. Dustless muttered to himself in an extremely ridiculous tone. He wasn't a simple person like Kusanagi Tatsuki. He knew that even if this guy died now, he would still be resurrected due to his special ability. Not only Dustless, but Athena also understood. This guy is just taking advantage of the situation. Athena's tone turned cold. She felt that her intelligence had been insulted. If she didn't know about Perseus's ability, it would be fine, but she also knew that Perseus could be resurrected again. However, this guy was still pretending to be dead. Although Perseus's blood was spilled all over the ground and he couldn't be more dead, this was only temporary. It wouldn't be long before he would be resurrected. In a sense, this could be understood as pretending to be dead. Since you like to pretend to be dead so much, I'll let you die completely. Athena's arms shook slightly, and a scythe with cold light appeared in her hands. Forget it. Let's end it here. Waving his hand, Dustless only glanced at Perseus, then simply left. His cold eyes were as sharp as a knife and as clear as the stars. It was as if he had forgotten about Perseus in an instant. Are you planning to let him go? Athena, who had caught up, asked in astonishment. She suspected that her eyes were playing tricks on her. Dustless had just tortured Perseus to death, but now he was letting him go. Athena had the illusion that the sun had risen from the west. No, we don't have to be nosy. Someone will deal with that guy. We don't have to do such a thankless thing. He's just a tool for pleasure. It's obviously not worth it to work so hard for a tool. From the beginning to the end, Dustless had treated Perseus as a tool for pleasure. There was no need to spend too much time on him, and someone would help Dustless clean up the mess. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, about an hour had passed. Gulp! An unusual throbbing came from Perseus's decapitated head. Then, Perseus's decapitated head suddenly moved as if it was a corpse that had come to life. The most frightening thing was that his eyes, which were originally closed, actually opened strangely. Damn it, it hurts. Even though his head was separated from his body, Perseus still spoke and revealed an extremely human-like expression of pain. This was not the strangest thing. Perseus's headless body suddenly stood up and slowly walked towards the head that had fallen to the side. The most shocking thing was that Perseus placed his severed head on his neck. Buzz buzz buzz. The dark sky suddenly lit up. It was very warm as the sun. And the place that emitted the fluorescent light was Perseus' body. The shocking crack on his neck was slowly recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. Whew! About 10 minutes later, Perseus's body was completely repaired. He was not in a hurry to leave. Perhaps because he was too tired, he only found a corner and sat down. That pervert! The moment Perseus sat down, Dustless's mischievous smile appeared in his mind. He couldn't help but shiver. He subconsciously opened his eyes and looked left and right, afraid that Dustless, the jinx, would come looking for him again. I must take revenge on him. After confirming that Dustless had disappeared, Perseus clenched his teeth. In his long life, the darkest, most terrifying, and most painful time when he was fighting with Dustless just now was the most painful time. It's best if I can join forces with the other gods of disobedience to deal with him. With my strength alone, I can't deal with Dustless. That guy can easily crush me without using his full strength. Moreover, he also has a god of disobedience by his side, Athena. This matter needs to be considered at length. Perseus sighed softly. Although he was a little disappointed, he did not despair. There was still a long time in the future. He firmly believed that Dustless would be unlucky one day. Dustless. Perseus, you seem to be in trouble. Do you need my help? A ghostly voice suddenly came from the dark night. It was as if it suddenly appeared from the bottom of his heart without any warning. Who is it? Hurry up and come out. After being stunned for a moment, Perseus quickly shouted loudly. At the same time, his eyes that were filled with murderous intent swept around. His gaze was sharper than a knife. Oh, it's really scary. About 3 to 4 meters in front of Perseus, a black light appeared, showing the outline of a girl about 13 or 14 years old. Yo. The mysterious girl smiled and raised her hand to summon. The first impression she gave was very gentle, but if one could see the ruthlessness in the depths of her eyes, they might not think so. You are Your Excellency Athena? Perseus frowned deeply and looked at the girl. Then, he shook his head and said with certainty in a deep voice, No, although you look exactly the same, I can be sure that you are definitely two different people. Who exactly are you? Perseus asked cautiously. A long sword appeared in his hand, and there were obvious beads of sweat on his forehead. He gave off a feeling that he was powerless. The price of resurrection just now should not be small. It doesn't matter who I am. Stretching out a white finger, the mysterious girl shook it mischievously. But one thing is certain. Today, you will definitely die in this place. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. As soon as her voice fell, a sickle similar to Athena's appeared in the mysterious girl's hand. Her speed was extremely fast, and she appeared in front of Perseus in a flash. He had just fought with Dustless and was severely damaged. Now that he had to face this mysterious girl, Perseus was destined to die. Chapter 1465. Perseus was shocked. He didn't expect this fake Athena to be so ruthless. She didn't even give him a chance to say a few words and directly attacked him without distinguishing between right and wrong. Clang, clang, clang. Even if this fake Athena, Métis, wasn't as terrifying as Dustless, Perseus still couldn't handle it. Just now, when he fought with Dustless, he was exhausted mentally and physically, especially when he was severely traumatized. As a result, he was now seriously at a disadvantage. It was as difficult as ascending to heaven to fight with Métis. Boom, boom, boom. Perseus was beaten until he kept retreating. He was extremely miserable. Previously, he was bullied and crushed by Dustless. Now, a bastard appeared out of nowhere to bully him. Outrageous. You only have such weak strength? Métis laughed sinisterly. There was deep disdain in his words. His tender arms looked as weak as willow branches, but that explosive power made it difficult for Perseus to resist. Poochie! Perseus' face turned pale and he spat out a mouthful of blood. A conspicuous wound appeared on his abdomen. The miserable appearance of his flesh being torn apart was disgusting. One could even see his bones. Clang, clang, clang. Seeing such a scene, Métis grabbed Perseus tightly and his series of attacks became even more ferocious. Damn it, this crazy woman! Perseus shouted sharply. He realized that the situation was getting worse and worse. As time gradually passed, more and more obvious cracks appeared on Perseus' body. It was obvious that he was about to lose. Even if Perseus was still persevering, there was no doubt that his life would be lost in the end. There was no doubt that Métis was the person that Dustless said could help him clean up the mess. Speaking of which, is it really appropriate for us to be so leisurely? In Lucurasia's house, Athena, who had just finished bathing, asked Dustless. Dustless, who was sitting on the sofa, quietly read the newspaper as if he didn't hear Athena's words. "Isn't this what you want to see?" After a while, Dustless' inexplicable words stunned Athena. "Perseus should have been killed," Dustless added. His expression was still as relaxed as ever. He looked at Athena, his bright eyes carrying a hidden meaning. Athena's eyes flashed with a hint of awkwardness. She was smart enough to understand what Dustless meant. "I didn't expect you to be able to detect her presence." The she Athena was referring to was naturally Métis. "You're underestimating me." Dustless rolled his eyes at Athena and said, "But, Athena, you are harming yourself. Sooner or later, she will come to us. Ah, the noble circle is really messy. You gods really make me worry." Of course, Dustless could understand Athena's helplessness. After all, Mortis was her mother. Humans were not plants. How could they be heartless? Who could kill their own mother? Moreover, Dustless had also heard a little about the matter between Métis and Zeus. According to his understanding, this was originally caused by Zeus' selfishness. In the end, Métis was also that innocent person. "What are you going to do? Are you really going to let her devour you?" Dustless frowned and asked. The way he looked at Athena changed. It was as if he was saying, "Don't try to trick me." After all, this was what Athena did in the original work. When she met Métis, she deliberately went easy on her, causing Kusanagi Protector to meet a deadly enemy. "Are you afraid?" Athena's eyes were rolling. At this moment, she looked very cunning and sinister. "Me? Afraid? Ridiculous." Hearing this, Dustless sneered and said calmly, "In my dictionary, there is no such word as afraid. She just doesn't have the heart to kill Métis. Her actions are understandable." Dustless immediately added. Thinking about the past between Métis and Zeus, Dustless couldn't help but shake his head. If Zeus was in front of him, he would chop her into pieces and burn her alive. The main god, Cronus, was afraid that his children would overthrow him, so he devoured his newborn children one by one. It was Métis who helped the surviving Zeus to overthrow his father, forcing him to spit out the children he had swallowed. Zeus began to pursue her, and Métis kept transforming to escape. However, Zeus's will and ability were stronger than hers. In the end, he made her submit to his will, and she became Zeus's first partner. When Métis was pregnant, an oracle from Gaia, or it could be said that it was Uranus who told her, said that their first child would be as intelligent and powerful as him in the future. The next boy would repeat the experience of his father, Cronus, and grandfather Uranus, overthrowing his father and usurping the throne. Zeus was very concerned about this oracle. He used clever words to deceive Métis, and when she wasn't paying attention, he swallowed her into his stomach. In short, all of this was caused by Zeus' selfishness. He was afraid that Métis' child would surpass him, so he swallowed his wife, Métis, alive. He was the ultimate scum. "If your cheap father appears in front of me, I will skin him alive." Dustless stared at Athena's eyes and said without hesitation. Dustless knew that he was a scum, but compared to Zeus' actions, he knew that he was inferior. Hearing the murderous intent in Dustless' words, Athena fell silent. It was obvious who was right and who was wrong, so there was no need to argue. The only thing that surprised Athena was that Dustless didn't seem to have the intention to destroy Métis. Chapter 1466. Athena stared blankly at Dustless, her purple-black eyes empty and gloomy. As a god-slayer, Dustless did not seem to be interested in the authority of some gods at all. A god-slayer like Marquis Warban would definitely fight to kill a god that did not obey him. "If Mortis does not come to me, I will not do anything," Silver said with a lazy expression, but his tone was exceptionally firm. "You can't be." Thinking of Dustless's strange personality, Athena's tone also became strange. She guessed, "You can't be interested in Mortis, can you?" "Bah!" Dustless spat out the tea that he had just drunk. Athena's words had stolen his attention. He stared at her in annoyance, feeling speechless and conflicted. "Am I that wretched?" Although the feeling of having two goddesses serve him would be ecstasy, both mentally and physically satisfying, Dustless knew that he was not that perverted. "You think of me too wretched and perverted." Dustless smiled bitterly. So far, the only one who had sex with him was Erica. To his surprise, Athena said disapprovingly, "You are a pervert." Hearing this, Dustless rolled his eyes and was too lazy to bother with Athena. Although this fellow was a god, she was very black-bellied. If she could capture him, he would definitely not mind. Sleep early. We are going back to Japan tomorrow. Too lazy to care about Athena, Dustless went to his room to sleep. Their vacation would end the day after tomorrow. Tomorrow, they would return to Japan for classes and work. 2 days later, Dustless and the others rushed to Kanan school side by side as usual. Erica, Liliana, Dustless, and Athena were all there. As for Gu Yoli, she had gone home last night. She had heard that Kanegi Winterhorse was looking for her. Although Dustless did not like Kanegi Winterhorse, he did not ask too much. After all, everyone had their own personal matters. Speaking of which, what kind of power did you get in Italy this time? Erica blinked and asked with an expectant smile on her face. Sorry, I didn't get anything. Dustless shrugged. His free and easy tone showed that he wasn't lying. Of course, there was no need for that. You didn't get it? Liliana and Erica looked at each other, both petrified for a few seconds. Your Majesty, did you not kill Perseus? This time, it was Liliana who asked. Her nervous look was rather cute and beautiful. He committed suicide. Wu Chen squeezed out a helpless smile from the corner of his mouth, but he chose not to mention the reason, avoiding the important and dwelling on the trivial. Hearing this, Athena secretly despised him. If Dustless were to say how he had destroyed Perseus, Erica and Liliana would probably join the enemy and sympathize with Perseus. In short, I didn't obtain that guy's authority, and even if I did, it would be useless to me, so I'll just let him be. The biggest highlight of Perseus was nothing more than the ability of the sun. He could recover from any injury, which was quite amazing. But as the body of the 10-tailed beast, would Dustless care about that ability? Of course not. As the 10-tailed beast, even if not a single cell was left after being destroyed, he could still create something out of nothing and continue to break out of the cocoon and be reborn. The degree of being amazing was even more than that of Perseus. Letting him live will pose a threat to the safety of the world, Liliana said worriedly. Indeed. Erica nodded in agreement. They were not like Dustless who liked to stay out of things. The two women valued the survival of the world very much, even more than their own lives. He has been killed. His opponent is someone else, Dustless said softly. He also had a headache about Erica and Liliana, who were so kind. If it's him, even if the world is destroyed, it has nothing to do with me. Really? Liliana and Erica asked excitedly. Their eyes were anxious as if they were saying that if you dare to lie to us, you can forget about having fun in the future. I'm not the only one who killed a god. Salvatore Anthony was there at that time. Maybe he was killed by him. And there are conflicts between disobedient gods. Dustless said angrily. I can testify that Perseus was indeed killed. Athena took the initiative to help Dustless. Perseus was killed by her mother. After that, Athena rushed to the battlefield to investigate. That's for the best. Both Liliana and Erica heaved a sigh of relief, as if they had been relieved of a heavy burden. The two girls talked and laughed, getting along quite well with each other. Really, do you have to care so much about the life and death of others? If you know that I destroyed a few worlds in the past, you'll definitely jump to another camp. Dustless secretly complained. He could not help but break out in cold sweat for himself. If Erica and Liliana knew that he destroyed the Naruto world, One Piece world, Shinigami world, and even the Demon High School world, they would know that he controlled the moon and almost destroyed the earth. All the dirty tricks were known to the two women. Dustless even suspected that Erica and Liliana always saw him as an enemy. After all, they had always been responsible for saving the world. And the role that Dustless played in the past was precisely the ultimate butcher who destroyed the world. By the way, have you found any traces of Mortis? Quietly approaching Athena, Dustless reminded her seriously. I don't need to say more about the relationship between the two of you. If you don't look for her, she will come to you. At this point, Dustless felt a headache coming on again. He didn't intend to kill Mortis, but if the other party came looking for him, such as Erica and Liliana, he couldn't possibly continue to do nothing. In the end, Dustless, who had no choice, could only wield the butcher's knife against Mortis. Chapter 1467. Dustless was depressed. He seemed to have fallen into a dilemma. Glancing at Athena, Dustless was now deeply suspicious of her moral integrity. She might deliberately go easy on him, and then merge with Mortis to find trouble with him. Dustless sometimes felt a headache for this girl who was not firm in her stance. But, thinking of what Athena said before, Dustless could not help but itch in his heart. If I can really get Mortis and Athena to serve me at the same time. Dustless was tempted, but he did not feel that his thoughts were dirty. As a man, he would have such thoughts. What are you laughing at? Staring at Dustless, Athena said coldly. If you have some unrealistic ideas, I advise you to stop before going too far. After saying that, Athena left Dustless with her back and quickened her pace. Unrealistic thoughts? Not necessarily. Don't you know who I am? Dustless curled his lips. His confident face was full of conceit. There was nothing that he could not think of. There was absolutely nothing that he could not do. Brother Chen, if you don't hurry up, you will be late. Kusanagi Shizuka urged, and at the same time, she quickened her pace and hurried to the school. Hearing this, Dustless waved his hand and smiled. After living in Kusanagi Shizuka's house for so many days, Shizuka had changed the way she addressed him, and their relationship was quite close. Shizuka also treated Dustless as her own brother. As for the original Kusanagi Shizuka, she had almost forgotten about him. When it's time to be lazy, you should be lazy. Dustless smiled slightly, and then his body turned into a huge flash of light and rushed to Chungjia College. Damn it! Why is there nothing worth investigating? In the health room where Dustless usually worked, a girl with long black hair and a perfect face cursed. Her big eyes were lively, and her expression was very anxious. If we don't find something valuable, that guy will come back. The girl rummaged around, hoping to find something of value, but after nearly an hour of work, all she found were newspapers and other insignificant things. That bastard, don't bother me, the girl said bluntly as she buried her head to look for useful information. Hearing this, Dustless's mouth twitched violently. He tried to maintain a gentle tone and said, "Student, I'm the healthcare teacher here. You can call me Dustless." "You're a healthcare teacher, shut me up." The girl's body suddenly stiffened. She immediately turned her head mechanically. Wu Chen's expression was gloomy as he stared at her with an unkind gaze. Cough, cough, cough. The young girl hurriedly coughed twice and stopped what she was doing. She tidied up her messy clothes and said seriously, "Teacher Dustless, I'm a new student. My name is Hui Na from the Clear Autumn Courtyard." What a familiar name. Wu Chen secretly frowned. His clear eyes stared at the young girl and scanned her twice. Suddenly, he patted his forehead. This little girl seems to be in cahoots with Winter Horse, Dustless suddenly realized and then asked with a smile. "Clear Autumn Courtyard student, why did you come to my healthcare room?" The whole health room was in a mess, as if there was a thief. It was too horrible to look at. There was no doubt that this was all thanks to the girl in front of him. Although he didn't know what this girl was here for, Wu Chen could be sure that it was Winter Horse Canning who instructed her. Hearing this, Hui Na from the Clear Autumn Courtyard's face turned red. She couldn't say that she was here to investigate him as a thief. "I'm having a headache today, so I wanted to find some medicine." Clear Autumn Courtyard randomly found an excuse, but her face turned even redder. It was obvious that she was lying. Headache. Hearing this, Wu Chen wished he could slap this little girl away. Looking at the messy medical room, this was obviously done by her. Even the hospital bed was kicked far away by her, and there were dark footprints on it. Damn, this was not something a little girl with a headache could do. Even if you want to lie, you have to make people happy. Take it. Dustless opened the drawer where he usually kept his documents and took out a bottle of medicine. He gave it to Hui Na from the Clear Autumn Courtyard and said softly, "You're going to have class soon. Take 2 to stop the pain. Come back after class." "Thank you, teacher." Hui Na from the Clear Autumn Courtyard took the medicine bottle. Seeing that Dustless's expression was natural and didn't have any suspicions, she was relieved. At the same time, she looked at Dustless suspiciously. How did this guy appear? Clear Autumn Courtyard was speechless. Dustless suddenly appeared behind her like a ghost. When he appeared, she didn't feel anything and was quite frightened. Ding ding ding. Dustless and Hui Na from the clear autumn courtyard remained silent. The atmosphere was quite awkward. At this time, the bell rang. Clear autumn courtyard, who seemed to have found her savior, bowed and left. I'll thank Dustless next time. I'll go to class first. Go. Dustless smiled and nodded. Really, her acting is too bad. Even if she has a headache, she should at least look like she has a headache. In the quiet corridor, Dustless watched Hui Na from the clear autumn courtyard run like she was flying. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Wanli Gu Yoli seemed to have gone home yesterday. Could it be that he went to find clear autumn courtyard? I remember that the two of them have a good relationship. They're both Witch Yuan. Dustless thought about Hui Na's origin. The information he knew was only a few words. The two of them were not familiar with each other. They had only met once. They had never met before. After thinking about it, it could only be someone else who asked her to get close to Dustless. Chapter 1468. The identity of the God Slayer is really dazzling. No matter where I go, I will attract a lot of attention. The clear autumn courtyard is probably aiming for this gilded status. Dustless smiled as he vaguely understood something. In the original work, Qingqiu Yuan came for the identity of the God Slayer. For Japan, which did not have the protection of the God Slayer and had the protection of the God of disobedience, Dustless was the perfect shelter. He was weak, had no background, and was strong. Most importantly, he was perverted. Who did this? Dustless's assistant, Athena, was also confused by the tragedy in the health room. She asked, "Could it be a thief? Do we need to call the police?" Call the police? Hearing this, Dustless thought about it carefully and felt that this word sounded weird coming from Athena's mouth. It was done by a naughty student. Just clean it up a little. Calling the police is unnecessary. Dustless shook his head, indicating that Athena did not need to make a fuss. Besides, he knew who the culprit was. Ding ding ding. The bell rang, signaling the end of class. In the blink of an eye, it was noon. The cold corridor was noisy, like countless flies buzzing around, giving people a headache. I really don't know why these guys are so talkative. Qingqiu Yuan sighed in front of the window. Her mood was already in a mess. Now that this group of strange students was noisy, Qingqiu Yuan was even more annoyed. "Yuan, how's the progress?" A pleasant, gentle, and slightly expectant voice rang out behind him. "It's you, Yoli." Turning her head to glance at the girl in the school uniform, Grace's expression became even more gloomy as if she had eaten Coptis chinensis. She smiled bitterly and said, "This morning, I secretly sneaked into the health room and planned to investigate what that guy was doing all day. However, Wu Chen suddenly appeared like a ghost and I was caught red-handed." Clear autumn courtyard's Grace was still at a loss. Where did Wu Chen come from? She thought about it all morning but still could not figure it out. Her head was still buzzing, and her thoughts were in a mess. "You hacked into the infirmary?" Wanli Gu Yoli covered her mouth and asked in surprise. "How could you do such a thing? You only have yourself to blame for being caught spying on others' privacy." "The point is, I was caught without seeing anything." Grace Courtyard was even more depressed. If she had gotten some useful information, it would have been fine if she had been caught, but the result was disappointing. She hadn't even gotten a single strand of hair before she was exposed. She really felt like she had suffered a loss. Especially Grace Courtyard, who was afraid of leaving a bad impression on Dustless. Invading other people's workplace for no reason, and turning other people's office upside down, no matter who it was, they would be furious. "Actually, your plan was unnecessary." Although Dustless is a god slayer, he's not as scary as you think. He's easy to get along with. The only flaw is... Wanli Gu Yoli was silent. His face was flushed red as if he found it hard to speak. "What flaw?" Wanli Gu Yoli's eyes lit up as if he was grasping at a life-saving straw. He asked anxiously, "You know that I need a suitable excuse to get close to Dustless. I heard from Winterhorse Ganji that Guy hates being monitored, especially by people like us who intend to use him." Hearing this, Wanli Gu Yoli was rather embarrassed. He stuttered for a long time but could not say anything. "Just say it." Grace Courtyard grabbed Wanli Gu Yoli's shoulder and shook it. He's very perverted. Wanli Gu Yoli could only say it helplessly. Looking at Grace Courtyard's anxious look, if he did not give her a suitable answer today, he would not be able to have any peace today. Are you sure? Grace Courtyard obviously thought of a good plan. She asked with a smile like a fox, and her eyes were narrowed into slits. Both her voice and expression were very cunning. You can't be thinking of a certain possibility, Wanli Gu Yoli asked carefully. You plan to seduce him? So smart, as expected of my close friend. Grace Courtyard did not feel uncomfortable when she heard this. Instead, she generously admitted it and gave Wanli Gu Yoli a thumbs up. That you still don't? Wanli Gu Yoli felt as if his throat was blocked. He swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. The corner of his mouth was incomparably bitter. He felt as if he had shot himself in the foot. Dustless was just a fart. He already had Erika, Liliana, Athena, Wanli Gu Yoli, himself, and Shizuka Kusanagi. There was already not enough for everyone. Now that Grace Courtyard's Grace had joined, there was no place for her to eat. Yoli, you. Grace Courtyard's white jade-like nose bridge slightly wrinkled when she saw the bitter expression on Wanli Gu Yoli's face. She faintly smelled a strong sour smell and immediately ridiculed. Don't tell me you have fallen for him. Have you been successfully conquered by that guy? Of course not. Wanli Gu Yoli replied without thinking. Is that so? Grace Courtyard's ridiculing expression became even more intense. She looked at Wanli Gu Yoli, who was fidgeting and clutching the corner of his clothes with a nervous expression, and muttered to herself, what kind of virtue does that guy have? Is his charm really that great? Yoli has actually fallen for him. Don't talk nonsense. Wanli Gu Yoli was not taken lightly. He angrily glared at Grace Courtyard's Grace, who had a wicked smile on her face. In fact, she also faintly wanted to know Dustless's true intentions. Yoli, I heard you say that guy has gathered a lot of women around him. Most of the god slayers are harem queens. We must form a united front. You have to help me. Chapter 1469. Clear Autumn Courtyard. Huey's watery eyes were bright and full of expression. She was afraid that others could not see how serious she was. She stared at Wanli Gu Yoli without blinking. Don't talk nonsense. Wanli Gu Yoli shook his head like a rattledrum. He decisively rejected Clear Autumn Courtyard Huey's unrealistic idea. He absolutely could not agree to this condition. Tisk tisk. Hearing this, the expression of the Clear Autumn Courtyard's patron was rather calm. She stared at the red-faced Wanli Gu Yoli with a smile that was not a smile. Her eyes, which were as calm as autumn water, were gentle but exceptionally deep and bright. Hui na you? Taking a step back in fear, Wanli Gu Yoli secretly knew that things were not good. She had a feeling that her inner thoughts had been seen through. She was really afraid of this kind of wise eyes that contained thousands of different meanings. Beads of sweat fell like raindrops. Just as she was having a headache about how to deal with Clear Autumn Courtyard Hui, her savior, who relieved her of a burden, appeared. This student. Clear Autumn Courtyard Hui frowned. When she forced Wanli Gu Yoli into a corner, she did not expect that someone would be so insensible to disturb her plan. Which blind thing is disturbing us? She turned around angrily, but the handsome figure that entered her sight made Hui Na of the Clear Autumn Courtyard dumbstruck. The person's bright eyes were as deep and dark as ink. They were very clear, and one could even see the reflection in his eyes. His messy hair made people feel that it was messy. However, combined with the young man's energetic face and the faint smile at the corner of his mouth, he gave people a feeling that he was rough but delicate. He looked rather gentle and reliable. Teacher Dustless? Wanli Gu Yoli and Clear Autumn Courtyard Hui were both stunned. They were somewhat sluggish and absent-minded. Dustless's sudden visit had indeed caught the two of them unprepared. In particular, the two women's faces were red and their expressions were slightly nervous. They gave people the feeling that they had done something wrong and were afraid of being found out by others. Teacher Dustless. What's the matter? Clear Autumn Courtyard Hui stammered. Wanli Gu Yoli's temperament was gentle, so he could only brace himself. Of course. Dustless stared meaningfully at Qingqiu Yuan Hui Na. Soon after he chuckled and said, Miss Qingqiu Yuan, to tell you the truth, I have already called the police. What did you say? The corner of Grace Courtyard's mouth twitched. She raised her voice by several decibels, and it was very sharp and ear-piercing. She had thought that she could easily get away with it, but she didn't expect that this fellow would call the police. How could she let this go? Although she could raise her butcher's knife to the god of disobedience without hesitation, she couldn't kill a powerless civilian. I suspect that our clinic has been burglarized, Dustless said with a serious expression. In reality, he was just trying to scare this new student. Didn't I just say that the health center is in such a mess because I was looking for painkillers? Hui Na from the Qingqiu courtyard said with a serious expression. That's too much. Dustless shook his head and said with a smile. The table in our infirmary was broken by someone. How could a little girl like you have that kind of strength? This must be done by some shameless man. Wanli-gu Yoli, who was at the side, couldn't help but laugh when he heard that. His smiling face was extremely cute. There was no doubt that the shameless burly man that Wu Chen was talking about was Wanli-gu Yoli. He was mocking her in a roundabout way. This bastard isn't cursing me on purpose, right? Hui Na from the Qingqiu courtyard suppressed her anger and squeezed out a smile that was uglier than crying. That was indeed done by me. I have practiced Taekwondo for 2 years. Is that so? Dustless narrowed his eyes and looked very cunning. He laughed in his heart. Finally willing to take the initiative to confess? I have to force you to tell me everything. That's why you should hurry up and get the police to leave. As if she had encountered a terrifying demon, Hui Na from the Qingqiu courtyard said with a face full of disgust. Although she wasn't afraid of the police, in the end, she was just an ordinary human. But as a student, being interrogated by a police officer in broad daylight, how could she face others in the future? Thinking about it, Hui Na from the Qingqiu courtyard's face was full of disgust. Staring at Hui Na from the Qingqiu courtyard's pure white delicate hands, Dustless's eyes lit up as he said with a smile, There's no hurry to find one. Before that, I still have a question. Could it be that this guy has a hand fetish? Catching the light in Dustless's eyes, Hui Na from the Qingqiu courtyard immediately trembled and couldn't help but hide behind Wanli-gu Yoli. Looking at Dustless, her eyes were full of uneasiness and her heart was full of fear. Student Hui Na from the Qingqiu courtyard should often practice swordsmanship, right? Dustless withdrew his gaze and asked softly. How do you know? Hui Na from the Qingqiu courtyard was stunned for a moment and asked in confusion. She was good with the sword and her swordsmanship was quite high. But what puzzled her was that she had never displayed her swordsmanship in this school. It's as simple as that. Hearing this, Dustless said indifferently, The inside of your right hand's 5 fingers have calluses. This is the best evidence that you practice swordsmanship. Moreover, you are so close to Wanli-gu. If I'm not wrong, it should be Gansu Dongma who sent you to get close to me, right? This guy is really careful. She looked at Dustless with a slightly sluggish expression. Seeing that her disguise was not exposed, Hui Na from the Qingqiu courtyard no longer hid it. You guessed all right. I am indeed a swordsman and have a good relationship with Yoli. However, my disguise should be flawless. Besides talking to Yoli just now, I haven't been in contact with him at all. How did you find out? Flawless? There is nothing perfect in this world. The so-called flawless is just your pure self-righteousness. Dustless calmly replied, turning a deaf ear to Hui Na's question. He couldn't say that he was a transmigrator and had the ability to predict the future. Chapter 1470. Grace Courtyard stared at Dustless in a daze. She didn't know why, but although she felt that her plan wasn't bad, when she thought about it, it was indeed a bit laughable. Phew! Since she had been exposed by Dustless, Hui Na of the Clear Autumn Courtyard no longer concealed her identity. She decisively introduced herself and said, My name is Hui Na of the Clear Autumn Courtyard. I am the only daughter of one of the 4 great families, the Clear Autumn Courtyard. She's also the #1, Tachi no Yukari in this generation, and her specialty is spirit subjugation. I understand. Dustless nodded slightly. His bright eyes seemed to see through everything. In fact, he didn't understand a single word. However, He only needed to know her surname and first name. Everything else was trivial. "What's the matter?" Dustless asked. Compared to these trivial matters, he was more concerned about the purpose of Clear Autumn Courtyard's Hui Na. "Since you are a witch and come from the same force as Wanli Gu, then there is only one possibility for you to approach me." Back then, Wanli Gu Yoli approached Dustless for the same reason as Qingqiu Yuan Hui. "I can accept your loyalty," Wu Chen said bluntly. Anyway, Qingqiu Brothel's purpose was so simple and pure. He had gained a pretty girl to fight for him, so why not? But I have a condition," Clear Autumn Courtyard's Hui Na said seriously. Dustless paused when he heard this. He looked at Bright Autumn Courtyard's stern little face in disbelief. He felt rather conflicted and could not help but complain in his heart. "You are my subordinate, but you actually have conditions for me, the king. Has the logic of the world been reversed?" "There's no need to say anything else. I'll reject all of your conditions." Dustless couldn't even be bothered to listen. He rejected everything in a single breath. He already knew what Bright Autumn Courtyard Hui was going to say. Akihabara Keita was stunned. Anger flashed in her eyes. Dustless really didn't give her any face. Whether he agreed or not, at least wait for her to say it first. "You just want me to send Liliana and Erica home, don't you?" Dustless's tone turned cold. Grace of the Autumn Brothel did not seem to understand the order of first come, first served. "This is Japan, and they are foreigners," Kena said solemnly. "Does this have anything to do with me?" Dustless was puzzled. "Of course it's related," Hui Na of the Clear Autumn Courtyard said seriously. "Erica and Liliana have crossed the line. The problem is very serious. You are now in Japan, so it is Japan's." "I'm sorry. First of all, I became a god slayer in Italy. Secondly, I first appeared in this world at Mount Lu in China." Dustless calmly said. Mount Lu was actually the place where Luo Hao lived in seclusion. Saying that he was the king of Japan was complete nonsense. The two had nothing to do with each other. "Then you are also..." Grace of the Autumn Brothel was dumbfounded. She wanted to refute Dustless's point of view, but she could not find a suitable reason. "Please don't use a broken island to decide where I belong. If you have to ask me where I am the king, I can tell you clearly that I am the king of the world," Dustless said in a very serious tone. Broken island? You mean, our Japan is a broken island?" Grace of the Autumn Brothel's mouth twitched violently. Her small face was red. She was very angry at Dustless's words. Her beautiful eyes were spitting fire as she glared at Dustless. She wanted to slap this bastard to death. Although Japan was indeed an island that was extremely sure of all kinds of resources and had a small land plate, it was not a broken island. Especially after a series of reforms in the past, Japan had risen from the original backward island country to one of the top existences on this planet. "Please watch your tone," Grace of the Autumn Brothel said with dissatisfaction. However, Dustless's face was still full of frivolity. He half-heartedly looked at the scenery outside the window. Clearly, he did not listen to Grace of the Autumn Brothel's words. "You two, arguing about this kind of issue is really boring. Why don't you go out and relax?" Wanli Gu Yoli saw that Dustless and Grace of the Autumn Brothel were in a deadlock. He had no choice but to stand up and resolve the situation. "I remember now." Grace of the Autumn Brothel's mind suddenly flashed with a light. Grace of the Autumn Brothel's footsteps suddenly stopped. The fire in her gem-like eyes burned even brighter. She angrily glared at Dustless and asked, "Since you know my identity, why did you call the police?" "This was intentional." "You finally remembered." Dustless smiled but did not say anything. Soon after, he shook his head. This reaction was a bit too slow. Grace of the Autumn Brothel's pretty face showed signs of turning green. She still remembered that Dustless had said before that it was definitely some shameless burly man who had ambushed her infirmary. Since Dustless knew that she was the thief who had ambushed the infirmary and still said that, wasn't this the same as secretly cursing her? "You're so despicable." Grace of the Autumn Brothel, who had come back to her senses, was fuming. Her pretty face was full of depression. "It's your reaction that's too slow. You want to protect me by yourself like this? Maybe your king has been killed and you're still chatting with someone else." Dustless's words were full of thorns. Grace of the Autumn Brothel was speechless. Grace of the Autumn Brothel opened her mouth and found that she was speechless. In short, I can accept your loyalty, but I can't let Erica and Liliana pack up and leave. You should understand the principle of choosing the lesser of two evils. If I had to choose, the person I would abandon would definitely be you. After leaving behind his thoughts, Dustless turned around and left. I knew this would be the result. Looking at Dustless's back, Wanli-gu Yoli bitterly smiled and sighed. He was faintly dissatisfied with Grace of the Autumn Brothel. This condition was clearly a tyrannical treaty. No one would be able to accept it, not to mention that Dustless was extremely powerful. Knights were just superfluous to him. In fact, Dustless's true thoughts were just as Wanli-gu Yoli had guessed. If he could take it, he would take it. If he couldn't, then so be it. After all, he wouldn't lose anything. Chapter 1471. Wanli-gu Yoli and Qingqiu Courtyard Megumi both looked at Dustless's back silently for a while. Then, Qingqiu Courtyard Megumi suddenly stomped her feet in annoyance. Yoli, you were right. Qingqiu Courtyard Megumi wrinkled her nose and said. Hearing this, Wanli-gu Yoli was stunned. His face was full of confusion as he asked, "What is true?" Qingqiu Courtyard Megumi rolled her eyes at Wanli-gu Yoli and reminded him, "Can't you see it? This guy is really lecherous. Seducing him before was the right choice." Towards the end, Clear Autumn Courtyard's garden master smiled with delight. "Where did you see it from?" Widening his watery eyes, Wanli-gu Yoli was even more puzzled. He frowned and recalled the trivial things that happened just now. Dustless did not do anything out of line. "You have to lose two beauties to get me. Of course, you can't do this kind of loss-making business." Qingqiu Courtyard Megumi said her strange point of view. "You!" Hearing this, Wanli-gu Yoli did not know whether to laugh or cry. He did not expect this reason to be so funny. It was completely unreasonable. In short, Dustless is the king of our Japan. We can't let others touch him. Erica and Liliana are not locals. They must step aside. Qingqiu Courtyard Megumi left with a trace of hostility in her eyes, as if she had made some kind of decision. Ding ding ding. At dusk, the bell for the end of class finally rang. The people of Chengjiao Academy all went home one after another. Dustless and Athena also went back together. About 10 minutes later, there were only a few people left in Chengjiao Academy. Most of these people were left to clean. "Erica, hurry up." Liliana complained with dissatisfaction. Looking up, Erica was staring at the distant scenery with a longing face. Her dazed eyes were a little absent-minded, and her expression was slightly frivolous and gentle. It was late autumn, and the golden leaves were dancing in the sky. The scenery was pleasant. "This kind of thing can be left to you alone." Waving her hand, Erica did not mind and pushed the responsibility to Liliana. Liliana could be said to be an all-round genius. She was good at cooking and had a unique set of housework. She had good control over all aspects of her skills. Boom boom boom. A strong wave suddenly swept over, and the beautiful scenery outside the window changed drastically. An inexplicable sandstorm attacked, filling the entire sky in the blink of an eye. What's going on? Was God not giving him any face at all? Isn't it just being lazy and enjoying the summer scenery for a while? Is there a need to be so exaggerated? Erica, who was lost for words, complained, but her face was full of wariness, and her lazy eyes regained their solemnity. His gaze swept around, and from time to time, a cold light flashed across the corner of his eyes. Such abnormal weather defied the laws of physics, and he instinctively thought that it was a scene caused by the appearance of some disobedient god. Damn it, which bastard did it? Liliana's eyes were spitting fire. She had finally cleaned the classroom after much difficulty. Now that the sandstorm blew, it was a tragedy. The classroom was covered in a thick layer of sand and dust. She was caught off guard and ate a mouthful of sand. Clang, clang, clang. The sound of steel rang out. Looking over, Liliana's sword had already been unsheathed. With such abnormal weather, she also guessed that the disobedient god had appeared. "Oh, the two of you look really scary when you're fully armed." A frivolous and mocking voice rang out. A black shadow was approaching at an incredible speed. It was so fast that it was like a chilly wind, coming and going without a trace. So fast! Liliana and Erica exclaimed in shock at the same time. Even with their strength, they could only capture the fleeting shadows. They couldn't even tell if it was a man or a woman. Bang bang bang. Crack crack crack. The sound of glass shattering rang out. The loud noise brought the dazed Erica and Liliana back to their senses. They stared at the black-haired girl who had suddenly appeared in the classroom, full of vigilance. "You did this?" Liliana asked with a frown, a hint of hostility in her tone. Although she was quite wary of the girl in front of her, she still had her dignity. Besides, being wary didn't mean that she didn't even have the heart to resist. "That's my greeting gift. Nice to meet you. My name is Akihara Kaina." The girl replied with a chuckle. Looking at the slightly disheveled Erica and Liliana, there was a hint of smugness in her tone. She didn't hide the smile at all. "How uncultured," Erica sneered. "She shouldn't be the disobedient god. She seems to be a witch from our country. Is this how you greet your guests for the first time?" "That's right." Although Liliana and Erica didn't usually deal with each other, the two decisively abandoned their previous grudges and jumped into the same trench in the face of a great enemy. "Are you saying that I'm uncultured?" Hearing this, Akihara Kaina sneered and mocked without backing down. "Have you forgotten that this is Japan? How dare you seduce our king? How despicable, foreigner. This girl's mouth is really asking for a beating." Liliana and Erica looked at each other, the corners of their eyes twitching at the same time. Being called a foreigner was even more unbearable than slapping them. "These little girls really give me a headache." At some point, Dustless was already sitting on the roof. He heard the noise of the three girls clearly. It was obvious that Akihara Kaina was deliberately looking for trouble, especially when she made such a big fuss. Her arrogant declaration was even more provocative. To put it bluntly, Akihara Kaina was here to fight. Her method was quite simple and direct. Whoever lost would scram. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.